were quite close to a town, and you're walking around in like shorts and your t-shirt or whatever, and like we would have locals come up to us, and like just like an old Italian lady came up to me and like patted my leg and just went, strong. And I went, yeah. And she goes, what sport? And I go, canottaggio. And she was like, see. But like other times they came up to us, and like this didn't happen to me, because I mean, if this happened to me, I would have cried. But this woman came up to a bunch of us, and she was like stroking arms, and she goes, rugby. And the girls were like, what? Like, as if you think it's acceptable just to come up to us, touch us, and then be like just naming like random sports.
Hey, what is up? Welcome to Last Stroke Counts. Today's guest is a world champion in the women's quad, and as we pointed out, the master or mistress of the Thames. Please welcome Lola Anderson to the podcast.
Hi.
Thanks for coming. Did this one in Leander, so it wasn't too far for you, but in the middle of your break, so I appreciate you taking some time out to come and chat to us.
Thanks for having me.
We said a fun one, our first Newcastle alumni. I don't know how we've avoided all the others so far, but it'll be fun to get into that one as well.
And is the first athlete after the 2023 World Championships that we've got on the podcast. So it's a privilege to have you on here.
On holiday. Yeah. They're away in like really nice places.
What, nicer than the Leander Library?
No, it can't be nicer than this.
It's a nice
You're
place,
right.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Cool. I think, like we said, let's talk about Worlds. How was that as an experience?
I find it quite hard to sum up, to be honest, because so obviously like you spend such like long chunks of time with your training, just like your mental preparation, everything like for one race, that when you get there, like sometimes it can just fly by like really quickly. Like having a crew boat, I think I prefer that, because you've got friends and support around you like constantly, so like it really helps like offset the stress, so you can kind of just like enjoy it more. But yeah, like this World was obviously really special. Like anyone, when you come away and you're like really proud of the result, like it's always going to feel like it was like golden memories.
Did you feel, how was it through the World Cup series? Like, were you confident? Obviously you medalled the year before, so presumably you were kind of confident that that's where you were aiming.
So I had quite like a rocky season like into like the World Championships, because so final trials, like as you know, like that's how we then get selected to go into crew boats, and we'd done some like seat racing and testing before that that luckily had gone well, but I actually wasn't able to race final trials because I was injured, and I then missed European Championships, but got back in for World Cup 2, and then was injured for World Cup 3 again because I had like a slight relapse of my injury.
You missed out on Henley, didn't you?
I missed out on Henley, half of Henley. I managed to race the first 2 races and then like not the final, got injured the night before or the day before the final. So that was really fun. But got back in the boat for Worlds, which was obviously like the important part. But in terms of preparation, like through the World Cup series, we'd had a good row against the Chinese at World Cup 2, but then I didn't get to test myself again until the World Championships. So it was a really weird year, because actually like confidence wise, in terms of where you feel like as a racer, I actually was kind of like left a little bit in the dark. I didn't really know where I was at for a lot of the year. Did
you find that challenging, or was that like something that you enjoy, that kind of challenge for training and motivation?
A bit of both. Like I think more times than not like challenging, just because like if you're doing all the hard training in the winter and then you don't actually get to test your speed, like that is first and foremost like just disappointing, because you kind of sat there being like, you're nervous to race and you're nervous because you hope it doesn't go like badly, but then when that opportunity to even try gets taken away from you, then it's just like disappointing. And then like World Cup 2 had like felt like I'd rehabbed really well, and so was feeling strong, feeling confident. And then came in, it went well, we were all really happy on cloud 9, go through to Henley. I'm thinking, this will be really cool. I think we've got quite a good shot of trying to win here. And then I was just like warming up down to the start and like pinged something in my back, and then was out for another like month or so, back on like the bike and in the pool, and like that was quite a demoralizing time, to be honest.
Swimming in the pool or just aqua jogging?
Swimming. There were plenty of people doing that sort of like aqua like aerobic sessions like next to you, and you're just like swimming along being like, why am I here right now?
Are you swimming up in, is it the pool up in Henley?
So
Nuffield.
I was a little bit sometimes there. I think it's like Gillett's pool.
Yeah.
And then most of the time I'd go to one in Maidenhead, like the Braywick.
Gillett's. I was in Gillett's for ages and for a long time.
It's tiny though.
Luckily, it's tiny.
Yeah.
Luckily, when I first went, Vicky Bryant, I don't know if you remember back in the day, she was under 23 gold medalist. She was hurt as well, so we were both aqua jogging there, and it's like we'd got to know all like the pensioners, like, hi Gerald, like, how are you doing, Susan? Like,
and they're so friendly, like the swimming community. Because then when we're at like that leisure centre in, I think it's Maidenhead, that I was going to with a bunch of other girls that also were sort of doing a little bit of swim rehab. We were making friends with like swimming clubs, and they were like offering for us to come and join. We were sat there like, well, you know, if the rowing actually doesn't work out, then maybe like just for fun. But
if you can swim, it's good. Like the first time it's literally you just in the deep end and just jog like on the spot for an hour, and it's just like mind numbing.
Yeah.
But if you're allowed to swim, that's a bit better.
Yeah.
So how soon after that second like lot of injury were you told, or were you confident that you could get back in time for World Championships? Was it kind of like a bit of a race against time?
So after that, so they were trying to work out what was actually fully wrong with me that second time round, because they thought that I had just sort of snapped something in my back ligament wise, and that because I'd had a back injury earlier on that year, my back like seized up and wasn't sort of moving or wasn't mobile because it was protecting itself in the way that it knew how to from earlier on. So they said you shouldn't have to sort of redo your rehab because you're basically just going down 2 steps. You've not lost all of the progress. So it should be fine once the inflammation goes down. Okay. But the inflammation was just taking a really long time to go down. So they were saying like, you're fine, like you're going back in the boat as soon as you're ready, and we've got subs for that, so don't worry about it. But time was starting to stretch out for quite a long time, and I don't think the coaches or the like medical staff were actually that stressed at this point. This was me getting quite like anxious because I was feeling fairly guilty as well at this point, because as I say, like we'd done some seat racing at the start of the year, and we'd done like other trials at Boston, but I'd missed like the major trials, which is final trials, and I'd still been put in the boat anyways. And at first I thought, okay, no, it's fine because I've only missed like a month. But when you feel like you've missed coming on to like half of the season, which it actually hadn't been that much, but in my head I was getting quite dramatic, I started just to feel like, well, if you don't get in like now, why do you deserve to go back in? Because everyone else is training their ass off, and you're here like training hard on a bike or in the pool, but you're not in the boat.
Mm-hmm. And then when you do get back, it's like, I need to perform.
Yeah,
the pressure, you put the pressure on yourself.
And they'd had a really good performance at that third World Cup. They'd beat the Chinese, which hadn't been done before, and we had been close to them at the second World Cup, but we hadn't beaten them in that race. We'd had a week together in that combination, and then we went out to row, so we were really happy with that result. But still, they got a better result technically in that sense without me. And so I was sat there thinking, why would they want to hold this seat for me at this point? Because what have I actually done?
That's super tough. I've been in that situation before as well. Like, sat at home watching the World Cup, like watching the boat that you're supposed to be in do really well, and be like, this could be bad. Yeah.
And I was genuinely like very happy for them, because we do have a good relationship with all of the girls in the squad. But then, as you say, like you're sat there and like your anxiety is sat there kicking in, saying, okay, well, like what happens to me now? Like, happy for them, but what does that mean for me? And you sat there, as I said, I was sat there thinking, well, why would you go back in at this point? Because these girls have got that result. They deserve the work and effort and everything they've put into it. So
dealing with that pressure, that kind of voice in your head, is there a way that you found to deal with it, or is it just a case of like one foot in front of the other?
It's really healthy. My way of dealing with stress and anxiety is to row. So when I'm stressed and anxious about rowing, but I can't row because I'm injured, you can see how that just really spirals quite quickly for me. So I need to work out some other ways. Like I like to bake, and I like to, I think exercise is the one for me. But as I say, when I'm injured, can't really do that. So when I'm stressed out because of injury, I'll just bake. But then I get stressed that I'm eating too much cookies, and I'm going to get like back in the boat like 5 kilos heavier. So
I
see, I'm
remember
like stressing myself out about it now.
in lockdown, my wife started baking, and she just doesn't really eat a lot of sweet stuff.
No, because I didn't want to eat it. I just
All
wanna
of a
bake
sudden,
it.
there's just like cakes everywhere. I was just like, I'm gonna get so
I was
fat.
like bringing baked goods in, or I was telling the guys at Cav like, oh, I made like a banoffee pie today, and I made too much like whipped cream, which I just put in with like sugar and vanilla. So I just like gave a bowl of it to my housemate who's in the 8 with them. They were sat there like, can you not just feed our teammate like just bowls of cream and sugar? And I was there like, no way, you wouldn't like that, but I didn't want to eat it and I didn't want to throw it away. So
I imagine if you kept bringing up like banoffee pies and all that sort of thing into Caversham, the lightweights would absolutely hate you.
Yeah, they'd be like,
keep dropping them off in the coach's office.
No, to be fair, when they get their like, they call it like a free week basically, but like when they finish their weigh-in, I have brought in like cakes and stuff for them before, because I'll always talk to them about like what I'm baking, and then I'm like, well, here you go, you can actually have it now. But
something came up on my Facebook. It must have been, I guess, like 2011 under 23s maybe. It was like me, Fletcher, and Kirkwood. It's like check in at the airport after Worlds, and like I remember it, like Fletcher's ordered like 14 burgers or something for like post Worlds McDonald's meal.
Honestly, fair enough.
They
But
just
surely
go,
that just
they
goes
go mad.
straight back out, because your stomach can't handle that when they can diet. Like honestly, like the lengths that lightweights have to go to, I find it both impressive and terrifying.
Yeah.
Like there is no way that I could do that.
Yeah.
I couldn't. I'd be a miserable person, and they come in and they're like smiling and still cracking on with all the training.
Like the one benefit of training your ass off is that you can eat whatever you want.
Imagine being hungry for 10 years.
I know.
That's the story I have, don't I? From there was I think it was Jane Hall told me a story of a lightweight who quit like on camp, and he was just always like a miserable guy. And they came down for breakfast the next morning, and he was like super happy. Everyone was thinking like, oh, he's going to be gutted. Like he's done. He's had enough. He's done. He's going home. And he's like super happy. And she was like, hey, like you seem all right about the decision. He was like, I've been hungry for 10 years.
Yeah.
He was like, I'm so happy. I'm so done. So
that kind of breaks my heart a little bit though as well, just to hear that I've been hungry for 10 years, and you think, oh my god,
I get grouchy if I'm hungry for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So then going into the actual event then, confident. I spent some time, obviously you've been in Varese, like you said, for about a month.
So when you went out to Varese, did you know that you were kind of going to get back in the squad, or was that still like a fight then? Were you still on the bike in the rehab process?
I was going out having been selected in the quads, but we had to sit down with like quite an intensive like planning schedule to work out, okay, so travel day, like that will affect your back. So this is what you're going to do in the build up to travel day, and this is what you're going to do out of it. And then when we arrive, like we've got scheduled down 2 rows, but we're going to swap these rows around so that you can do the hard one second and you can do a bike first type thing. Like just trying to work out ways that we could manage and offload my body within being in a crew boat, because that's obviously, that was part of the guilt where I was sat there being like, well, when I come back in, I'm going to be dictating quite a lot of like what we can and can't do. And is that really good enough when like if a coach says we're doing these sessions because these sessions will get you a gold medal, and you're sat there being like, well, I can only do like 75% of them. Like, how fair is that on the rest of the crew? But we did manage. It took me like 2 weeks, I guess, of being on training camp before I was able to do like proper full mileage as everyone else. So at that point, it probably been about like 4 weeks of rehabbing after Henley before I was then kind of back in totally normal.
Yeah, I think it's really good to like see them approach your situation from more sort of like an individual case by case, and then to actually like give you enough time. And you might think like, oh, is that fair on the rest of the crew? Well, this isn't like your first performance, so they kind of are putting trust into you. They know what you can produce. So that's from team management, that's kind of fair enough.
Yeah, I like that. I think I would have said like maybe 10 years ago. Is that when I was in the team? Jesus. Like maybe like some of the shortcomings with it wasn't individualized enough. So I think that's pretty cool to hear that's happening.
I think they are definitely like pivoting on that to sort of be like, if you want to get the most out of the team, like you need to get the most out of your individuals.
Yeah.
And like my boat never made me feel guilty. Like they were always happy to be like, whatever you need, we'll do. And that's fine. It's just, as you say, like as athletes, you never want to feel like you're slowing or dragging a project sort of like behind to sort of fit to your pace. Like I want to be a teammate, not an individual in a crew boat. So going through that camp, I had highs and lows of feeling like confident and feeling a little bit like uncertain, because obviously even after you've rehabbed, and I was still sort of like keeping on top of all of my physio and my exercises that I do for like activation throughout the camp, I had to sort of relearn how I confidently row, because like my rowing style, I feel like I pick up, I'm quite like front loaded, whereas like other girls in my boat are really good at pressing through the back. Like I can be quite weak around the back end, but quite sharp around the catch. And so in particular with like a bad back, I was feeling like quite scared sometimes with, oh my God, am I going to pop my back again on this one random stroke on training camp? So it took quite a while just to, Susie outside, it took quite a while just to get like back into it all.
You can stop if you want to say hi.
Yeah.
I was feeling like a little bit awkward sometimes in my sessions because I knew how I wanted to row, but I didn't feel like physically confident doing it. And then I'd get frustrated at myself thinking, you know, like, again, you've taken someone's seat here that like is physically able to do this, and you can't really be sat here sort of fighting yourself over something that is like you either do it or you don't. So after a while, it just became sort of a matter of like, don't think about it and just do it. And the more times I did that, started to feel more confident. And then like in the last like 2 weeks before flying out to Worlds, that was when I started to feel like I was rowing normally. Because you don't want to come into a boat that you've been selected in, but you don't really feel like you've done a lot to be selected into it. You don't want to come into that boat then thinking you're not actually bringing your best rowing. So without that, I wasn't feeling that confident. Like I felt confident in the boat, but I didn't feel confident in myself.
But so this year's like the first year you've had problems with your back?
Yeah, so kind of. So I'd had, like after that COVID year, I'd had a slight like back problem, which I was here at Leander at the time, not part of the team. And I just spent about like 6 or so months on the bike. And I think I'd sort of like just, I think I'd actually caused my bulging disc problem during lockdown, because I couldn't think of anything worse than sitting on the erg on my own. And I just got really bored. So I just started doing loads of like garage weights. And I just became obsessed with like deadlifting with awful technique. And I remember doing a deadlift one day where I was like, something doesn't feel quite right, but like not awful. And then went to row at Leander. Within like the first week, I was like, it's really uncomfortable rocking over and backwards. And we never got a scan, but we just sort of let it die down over the next like 6 months.
Okay. Yeah.
And that was then when I went to do trials, went to World Cup, raced at Henley in my single, etc., and then came in the team. So our team doctor Anne says she thinks that this bulging disc that cropped up this year actually has just been like underlying for the past year and a bit, but my body was kind of like dealing with the inflammation and the recovery fine.
It definitely takes time, like first injury, like getting, like you said, like getting confidence back. Like I remember Anne speaking to me about it and being like, now you've had a problem with your back, you need to understand that you'll always be aware of it. Whereas like before, having had an injury, you, like exactly what you're saying, you can just push. I don't care. Like I'm just going to rag the crap out of myself. And then now there's always going to be like, oh my God, did it go? And then there's that confidence. How's it feeling? Is it more tight today? Yeah. And like, you just have to like reset to a new level of like awareness. But I think that's just becoming like a more rounded athlete, because you're not going to row at this level and not get injured. So it's just something like what you've been through this year is just learning how to deal with that.
That's what all the coaches were saying. Like Darren, the head women's lightweight coach, he was, he kept saying comments being like, no one goes to the Olympics in the end, Lola, without like a bulging disc here or there. And I was like, really? That's great. Love it. Like,
here or there.
Really?
Just what you want to hear.
We're not there yet anyways. We're still like 2 years out. So that's reassuring that, you know, it's just 2 years early, but that's fine.
Pete laughs sometimes to have someone on here, you know, like our back problems. I'll be like, L4, L5, L5S1. They're like, yeah, L5S1. Like, X-ray guided or not? No, yeah, no, I went X-ray. Like, it's like another language.
It's just like, yes, no. Okay, if no, then this. And you say yes, and you just like flip through the answers.
I'm very lucky I managed to get away without any back problems. So I
didn't do it long enough.
Yeah.
No, that's it. I quit too early.
So
sneaky.
Yeah, so then coming into World's confidence, at that point, you feel like you're back at full strength, quads running nice?
Yeah, we'd done some like training pieces, and like, I don't know how much you know about the training program that we do, apart from it's obviously going to be hard and it's intense. But like Andy always puts in loads of like really intense pieces in the middle of like intense blocks. So you are very run down, you are very fatigued, and you've got lots of lactate in your legs. And the point is just to sort of like, you're going to do this 2K, or you're going to do several 2Ks or longer pieces, whatever it is. You're going to do them flat out, and you're going to get to the end and you're going to realize you can do that. So it was a peace day like that, and we put in like a good time for the conditions. We were feeling like really quite good. And that was when I started then thinking, okay, I might not have been able to race like that last World Cup, didn't get to race Europeans, but realistically, like, has it actually slowed us down? No, because that's a quick time and we're happy with that going in. So was feeling confident in the build up. Yeah.
And then how did like heat semi, what did you have? Heat semi-final?
Heat semi-final. Yeah, heat semi-final.
Yeah.
So I actually was really nervous for the heats. And I think I've noticed this now more. I think the heat is the race that I'm always like the most nervous for, just because, especially this year, as I say, like after having said that I was feeling confident going in, like I was feeling confident that I wasn't going to like mess the boat up, but you don't really know where that crew stands. When you haven't raced on the world stage, you really don't know where you stand. So I was feeling confident going in, but then you just really don't know when you go to that first race, like where actually are you in the field? So I was very nervous for that one, but like, you know, it wasn't our most polished row, but it was good. It was fine. We got through comfortably. And then the semi, we had more competition to go against that we would sort of expect to see in the final, the A final. And so that was a good one to sort of like test ourselves against, and that also went well. And then by the time that you get to the final, I think I was actually most relaxed for that one, because it was kind of at that point sat there thinking, I don't like to think too much about like the end result. I would rather think about the process and being in the moment. And I was saying, look, we've already done 2 races where they haven't been perfect, they haven't been flawless, but they've still been like good in comparison with the field. So long as we come off the water and we have a row where you can turn around and say, that felt like good rowing for us, like that's all I really want out of the race. Because like you want to just come away feeling satisfied that your preparation has actually been worth something. But yeah, if you do that, then the results should be good enough anyways.
Yeah, I think like you're saying, like in terms of the training, like that's kind of what you're being taught, isn't it? It's not about being perfect. It's about doing the best you can where you are right now. Like, I think you can like really put yourself off in a race if it's like conditions are bad or this or that's off, and you're like, oh shit, that wasn't absolutely perfect. Isn't it? It's like, what's our best right now, here? And it's confidence to go out and do that.
Yeah, I think you've nailed it. Like, you know, you can only feel satisfied if you feel like you've left nothing else behind. And if you don't have a good row, it's hard not to like think what if, etc. Like going into the other races.
So how'd it go final then?
It was good. Yeah, I mean, it was good because we won. So I think obviously like as teammates going, we all have different like strategies and stuff, but we did say that we didn't want to fixate too much on any boat, because if you fixate on one boat, you can kind of give a window for another crew that you're not expecting to do well, sort of like sneak on by. And also, like if that boat is just better at the end of the day, then you don't want to get disappointed that you're not sort of living up to the standards that you've set yourself. So we knew comparatively like our start is quite slow in comparison to the other boats, but we feel like our mid pace was a strength of ours, so we could just sit there. And if we did that and we sort of stayed connected with boats out of the start, by the time we get to like that last 600, we should be able to look at like trying to chip through and chip away. And I think it was just very calm and very relaxed. Like looking back on it, I didn't realize that it was quite so close, because we were just very internal, and like I could sort of see and feel the Dutch around us. And so I wasn't really panicked, to be honest, because we were just stepping through, enjoying our race, like following Georgie's rhythm, and it just felt smooth and long.
At what point did you come out into the lead?
I think it was maybe like 500.
Yeah.
I think it was around that point. Like we had overlap with them coming through the K, and we know that our second K, we tend to sort of like step on a bit more than the others. So at that point, I did feel very like calm, because I thought that we would be able to sort of move through them. They did sort of hold on, I think, looking back on the race, longer than we had sort of like prepped in our sort of race preparation for what we would have expected from the race. But we had somewhere to build in our last 500. So.
And then, so did you know coming through the line, you were like, you could tell?
No, I knew. I'd always tell people not to look out of the boat. So sorry to my teammates, because they don't do it. But if they did do it, I'd be like, eyes in. But I always have my eyes out because I'm kind of sat there like looking like peripherally, and I'm looking around, and it's nice to sort of like,
how could you not
have a quick sort of glance, and then I can tell Georgie what's happening. And, you know, likewise, like Lauren will keep us updated, but every now and then, like I can tell that in the sterns, like Georgie and I like don't know quite as much as what the bows know, because they see more. And so for me, I like to just kind of look out and be like, okay, we're good. Like we're on 2, or like we're moving through, and it's literally just a one-liner, but it gets her excited, and then
do as I say, not do as I do.
Yeah, I know. Literally, poor Georgie. Like she could sort of like even just like turn her head to the side 'cause she's like stretching her neck, and I'd be like, "Don't look out the boat." She sat there like.
So crossing the line, good feeling.
Yeah.
How was it?
I mean, so straight away I could hear like Hannah crying, and then the boat just sort of like wobbled about massively, and I thought, oh my god, what's happened? And like Lauren, I didn't realize at the time, but she'd thrown her hands up, and then her blades had sort of like dug and sort of stuck right in the air, twisted one gate round and completely lost the other blade. So we had like no one really sort of stabilizing that. So I was like, why is the boat moving so much? Because like Hannah is like bawling her eyes out crying. I was just kind of in shock because, to be honest, as I say, like I like to stay more in the process of the moment. So we finished and I just kind of went, thank God that's done. Like that's over. But it took me like a while to sort of really feel like the full sort of like hit of emotions. But when you're surrounded by everybody that is just like, you can just feel their energy and their positivity, their happiness, just like the relief, everything, it just makes you feel like so like hyper, like just running around like kids, just like screaming, laughing, like everything was, it was impossible for anything to be like bad that day because everybody was just so happy.
Yeah,
so that was really nice.
That's kind of how Jack Beaumont described winning the silver at the Tokyo Olympics. It's like nothing could have gone bad that day.
No.
Are there any like particular songs, memories, calls from that campaign that like you can like remember back in time and just
Hannah and I shared a room for Varese World Cup 2, and then we shared over the World Championships as well, and we always found songs that literally like everyone hated in the boat, but we were just, well, they hated it because we played them like non-stop. There was never any other song. There was no songs queued. It was just like repeat. So like Lauren hated this song. I think it was like Niall Horan that from One Direction. He has a song called Heaven, and we sang it, played it like non-stop. So she hated that. And then there was one that we were listening to because we've been watching some like crap TV program when we were out there. We were so bored. You've got so much time. We'd watched, it's like on Amazon. It's called The Summer I Turned Pretty. And it's like, do you know what I'm doing?
Just a trashy.
So bad, like so bad, but also really addictive.
You just need a switch off.
So good. Like, so, yeah. So we were watching that and they had like a soundtrack that literally every single song, Hannah would be like pausing it. She'd be like, Spotify, like, what's this song? And like, just honestly, it was so funny.
Oh my God. Yeah. I got one training camp. We got into The Wire. And then, which is a good series, but then you just like spending like every minute of every day.
It's like impossible.
And there's another one, Entourage. And then the worst one was me and Ollie Cook got into Game of Thrones in a Viz. And then I just like we didn't see anyone else. It was like from because a Viz as well, you can go from the course, you can go like just like back into your room out the back. So we almost like wouldn't even, we just like run back to our room like, I need to watch more Game of Thrones.
We watched so many, because so we'd watched one on Apple TV and I always got the name wrong, so I'm probably going to get the name wrong now. But it was about aliens. Called like Invasion, I think, and it's about these weird like aliens that were coming in. They were just killing everyone left, right, and center. But this one little boy obviously has some like special mental connection with the aliens, and we were obsessed with it. But it was also really kind of like actually quite scary. So after a while of watching that, I was kind of relieved that we literally ran out of seasons to watch. We watched all of the seasons that were available, so I was like, okay, that's done. And then we watched The Lioness, that's on like Paramount. She had like her Fire Stick, which is brilliant. You just plug that in the TV and just watch anything. We watched Disney movies, like the new live action like Little Mermaid. So honestly, we were just a cinema room like every day.
It's not much else you can do. Like you're so knackered. Yeah, you just need to sit down and do nothing.
Like we'd go for a walk and explore some like local coffee shops, but we were like where our hotel was like classic GB Rowing. It's kind of situated in the middle of nowhere. Like it was a great hotel. It was really nice. We were like treated brilliantly, but it was in the middle of nowhere. So
when I did Varese in 2012, we did the Europeans there, and we stayed at this amazing hotel. It's like super posh. Had like the guy who owned it was like into motor racing. Had a load of motorbikes in the foyer. Wow, like classic.
No, we haven't stayed there.
No, I know. I don't think they stayed there a lot. But I think maybe because it was a regatta. No, the other normal hotels were like busy or whatever. But that was fun.
Nice,
awesome.
Yeah. Shall we get started into your rowing history and how you got into rowing in the first place?
Sure.
Rewind.
Yeah.
Rewind.
Yeah. Okay. So I learnt to row like at my school, which was Surbiton High School. That was the big reveal.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice. Shout out Surbiton.
Shout out Surbiton High School, Green Army.
Do you have Pete Robinson?
No. So Pete has joined in years where I've not been rowing there since, but I actually went back after I finished at Newcastle to like coach there for a year.
Oh.
I rowed at Surbiton, went to Newcastle in my year out of like before I came to Leander and before COVID. I'd moved back home, rowed at Molesey, and then was part-time coaching at Surbiton. COVID hit, bunch of scullers from the US were coming back and they were settling at Leander. So I moved to join them at Leander.
So we do all the eggs at Surbiton. We fix their ergos.
Do you?
Yeah.
Oh.
And I rowed with Pete.
Do they break loads?
Nah, they're not too bad.
I hope not.
I rowed
I
with
used to
Pete.
shout at all the girls and they were like, oh, she's so annoying. I'd be like, be careful with the equipment.
Just breaking stuff.
I mean, you have to with the novices.
I used to live with Tom Cannon as well.
Oh,
we
okay,
both joined Leander in the same year in like 07.
Okay.
Is that the Watlington house?
Yeah. Tom
Oh,
Cannon
okay.
used to live in that. Yeah, 3 rooms, 5 guys. Yeah, it was awful.
Okay.
Yeah, rowers as well.
So Tom Cannon and another guy I rode with, Ali Webb. We've said this before as well, but they shared a room. They had a room, and Tom Cannon just had this massive set of like cupboards. So they just put it up in the middle of the room to like split the room in half. It was like classic rower's house.
Just like make do with what you've got.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't have any money.
No.
It was fine.
So how did you find out about rowing at Surbiton?
So, my dad, my dad's side of the family, they're all Kiwi. This is actually not important, sorry. He learned to row at uni, and he learned to row at Durban University in South Africa, came back, moved to the UK to work in London. My mum had the family, and then my eldest sister was looking to join sport, and she went to LEH, Lady Eleanor Hollis School in like Hampton. She learned to row there. She was very good at rowing. When she was a junior, she went to Junior Worlds like 3 times, and then she went off to the States. And I have a twin brother, and he learned to row maybe like a year before me, and my dad had like taken me down to Tideway Scullers where my brother was like rowing one day, and he was like, oh, are you sure you don't want to try this out, Lola? Are you sure you don't want to try this out? And I have a bit of a fear of like big open water, and I know a river isn't open water, but when you look at the Tideway,
Yeah.
oh my god, it actually just gave me like nightmares. I capsized a lot, it would turn out. When I first started rowing, I used to capsize like every session. So I'm convinced that if I'd started rowing on the Tideway, I think I would have quit like immediately. Not because any of the clubs were like not nice or anything like that, but purely like I just would have been like absolutely petrified all the time. So
Totally scared of water, made my profession out of rowing.
yeah, everyone always says this. I was like, you're supposed to be on top of it, not in it.
Yeah,
so
true.
I shouldn't be in it, but I did capsize a lot.
We had another friend who, it was always quite funny to go on training camp. He was really scared, and people would be like, oh, he's scared of flying. He's like, I'm not scared of flying. I'm scared of falling out of the sky.
Yeah.
There's a difference.
Yeah, exactly. You can kind of rationalize and like compartmentalize. But yeah, no, so I'd started at Surbiton, and at the time I was like swimming, and I used to be like full-time swimming training. I absolutely hated it. Like really would just like cry. And it makes it sound bad, but my parents were like, you need to be active. You need to have something that's outside of just academics, because it makes you sort of just like a happier, more well-rounded person. But I wasn't allowed to quit rowing until I found another sport. And it was like in my first year of being at Surbiton that they introduced a boat club, and I was like, okay, great, brilliant. I'm going there then. And I quit, and I didn't really look back, because it didn't matter how many times I was like capsizing in the river. It was more fun, and I enjoyed
Better
it.
than swimming.
Yeah.
Yeah. My mum was the same way. She took us to all different sports, but it was like, if you do it 100%.
Yeah.
Like all or nothing.
Yeah.
I used to play rugby on Sundays at the rugby club. And one Saturday, like I was still playing rugby and I was rowing, and I'd done some hard session or some regatta on Saturday. So Sunday I decided I wasn't getting up. My mum came in, she was like, come on, you're going to rugby. I was like, no, I'm not going to rugby.
Yeah.
Leaves the room, comes back with a glass of water, and just chucks it on me, and was like, "You're going to rugby," and I was like, "I guess I'm going to rugby."
Oh my god! And this is the thing, like it's so hard. Like looking back, like at the time I was there, like I don't want to go to swimming, but like as parents, if you let them just say no, like every 2 seconds, and then you actually follow through with being like, okay, I guess, darling, you don't have to go. Like it's fine, whatever you want. Like I would have quit almost everything.
Yeah.
Like I probably would have quit rowing as well, because as I say, like I wasn't naturally like that good at it to start. And if it wasn't for the fear that I was going to go back to swimming, I probably would have just, I would have been like, this isn't for me either.
That's
and
it.
stopped. Yeah.
Not the first athlete we've had who rowed to avoid a different sport.
Yeah.
Which was quite funny.
But you said you weren't that good at rowing to start with. Does that mean you actually were able to throw or catch anything?
No.
No,
I did swimming and cross country running, and I did enjoy cross country running, but I also didn't really feel like I was that good at it either. So to be honest, I was floating through sports, not really enjoying it because I felt like I didn't really know what I was doing. But then I guess when you start rowing, like nobody really knows what they're doing, which is quite nice. You don't feel like you're behind all of a sudden. And I was behind because I capsized like literally every single day. But then we got Bill Lucas come in to be our head coach at Surbiton, and he really started to like turn things around for me when he came in. Like I had been sort of progressing in my like local area, but he was the one that kind of came in and was like, look, if you want a trial, like this is what we're going to do. And he really sort of flipped a switch.
It's cool. He's at Cambridge now, isn't he?
Yeah.
I think so.
He went from Surbiton to like coach the Swiss, like under 23s maybe, with Robin Dowell, and then came back.
Rest in peace, Robin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. So then, obviously progressing. So when did you get the bug for it? How long did it take?
Oh my gosh. I didn't actually appreciate it was this early on, but so it was around like London 2012 and we were watching all of the Olympics. And as I say, at this point, I think I was like late 13-year-old Lola. I was watching like the Olympics, getting ready to go to a training session. And I obviously just got struck by this like massive wave of inspiration because I like got my little mini like Jack Wills diary out. Just so embarrassing. Got like a bright pink highlighter, and my handwriting, shocking, like wrote in this tiny, it was cool to have like mini diaries. So it's literally like this big. Like wrote in like fat pink highlighter, like across like 10 pages. My name is Lola Anderson, and it would be my biggest dream in life to go to the Olympics as part of Team GB rowing, and if possible, win a gold medal. And then I got really embarrassed by this. So I'd like ripped all of the pages out and like thrown them away. And my dad, who had been like in charge of like just checking, like collecting all of the bins and stuff from all of the kids' rooms, had like seen these bright pink like diary entries ripped and like thrown in my bin. And so he fished them out, kept them, and he said that he gave them to me like just shortly before he passed away, because he was like, I was planning to give this to you if you ever actually like made it to the Olympics, or I'll like just embarrass you at your wedding day like one day, but like here, like you should have these back. So I didn't, up until that moment, I wasn't really sure when it was that I had just decided that I wanted to do it. I was like, I guess I've kind of always been a competitive person, but there was actually like a moment where I decided this is what like I wanted to do. So
that's amazing. That's such a cool story.
Yeah,
it's embarrassing. Like honestly, if the diary was nicer, I would like keep it and I'd sort of do something with it. No, because as I say, it's literally like Jack Wills like embossed paper, like the little like pheasant in the background. It's like this big, and it's my handwriting is just it's awful. If it was nicer and like easier to present, I'd probably be a bit more like proud of it and be like, well, she knew what she was going to try.
Good story.
Do,
I think by the time you're going to show that off, you're not going to care what it looks like.
I think I'm going to have to keep that hidden. I do think that's like, it's like in a tiny little tin box somewhere to keep it safe.
Just to get out, you have a look at, but it doesn't have to be on display.
Yeah, keep it private.
I like it more because it just shows like how much your family and stuff like are there to support you. Because I mean, I was literally, by the time that he saw that, I was 14, 13, watched one Olympic rowing race and capsized like 50 times, hadn't yet probably done a full session without falling in, and he still decided that he was going to keep that because I don't know, like I think parents obviously like sometimes quite like blindly proud of their daughters, but he saw something, and I like that.
I like the fact that you keep talking about falling in. Like in my experience, the ones that fall in all the time are just the ones that have the confidence. Like what actually holds you back is being so scared to fall in that you never actually progress.
I think I fell in because I was so scared, so I was like holding on to my handles like this, and we were like going to do like a capsize like skills and drills test where it was like you're gonna do rigger dips and stuff like that, and I literally capsized on my way to that, so I never got to do the rigger dips and stuff. So to this day, the boat's like twitching about, I'm like, sit.
I find it insane that you guys learn how to row in singles. Like it took me like months until I was allowed to go in the single because of the whole thing of like do not capsize.
I think I think most of it's called quads. Did you start in a quad or literally go straight?
No, we started in singles. Wow. They did like our capsize drill was in the river, because I know that now you do it in like pools and stuff, but no, they literally we rowed out of Molesey Boat Club, so you know that like nice little like boat push off bit, which is still quite shallow. I remember being like, I'm scared of rivers, and they were like, well, you go. And it was like the capsize drill like straight into the river, and I kept kind of like just sitting there and like rolling in so that my head never went underwater, and they were like, no, that doesn't count, you have to do it again. So I was like, as if I failed my capsize test.
Can't even fall in properly.
No, I was like, well, this is how, and to be honest, for the most part that was actually how I capsized, because I'd be scared that I was going to go in, and then instead of fighting it, I just kind of like flop in and just like roll myself in.
Just give up.
Yeah.
So
easy way to finish the session.
From 2012 then to 2016 was your first GB vest, so those 4 years.
Yeah.
Really start to get obsessed, take over the usual story.
Yeah, well, because as I mentioned, my older sister, she'd already gone to Junior Worlds 3 times.
How much older than you?
6 years.
Okay.
6 years older. So she had gone to Junior Worlds as a J16, 17 and 18. And so when I went to GB France, I was like, well, okay, it's not as good as Amber, but that's fine. And then went to Coop and like narrowly missed out on going to Worlds that year.
Which Coop did you go to?
The one in Szeged.
Okay, yeah, 2015.
Yeah. And had a lot of fun there, like got 2 golds. So it was like feeling like I was building in that sense. And then the last year I got selected to go in the women's quad, and we got silver there behind the Chinese. So I was feeling like, yeah, like good, because that was the same result that my sister had got. So I was like, oh, we're level now.
Yeah.
And then, so she was definitely like quite a big source of inspiration for me growing up, because I was like, well, if she could do it, I want to try and do it too. Yeah. And then, when I got to uni, I was like trying to think about going to under 23s. But as I say, I think I put like a little bit too much pressure on myself. And there were times there in that chunk, like in that under 23 period, where like the training was good, the support around me was great, but I was just sort of like eating away at myself, like at the same time.
Did you choose Newcastle for rowing? Like, did you decide?
Yeah. So I was not the best. I'm not the best at like preparation and like planning. I'm a bit more of a go of the flow kind of person. And at school, I was so fixated on rowing, I like just wasn't really thinking about unis for such a long period of time. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh God, this is really exciting, like big adventure coming up. And loads of my friends were talking about Newcastle and how much they loved the city and how much they like loved the atmosphere of the squad. So I did no research into like what the training program was like, what anything was really like. But I just went, yeah, okay, that sounds great. Like, let's go there. Turned up on day one and was like, guess this is me for the next like 3 years. And luckily, like it really did work out like very well for me. And I made like the best friends from there. Like the coaches were lovely. Like the training was like really hard. And I've mentioned before, like to different people, like the training was for me like a bit of a culture shock in that sense, because it's just very different from what I'd been on before. But I think that shock like developed me in ways that I wouldn't have learned to do had I not gone there.
I think any step up from junior is obviously like another level.
There's no one's university program where I'm like, oh, that sounds easy.
Yeah. Well, or they're not competitive.
Yeah.
So,
specifically in Newcastle, like the sheer volume that you do, like, you know, you have like new levels of blisters, because like the second session on a Sunday is like 10 3Ks and you're like battle paddling with other people. And it's like, wow.
So how was it? Obviously, like in its time now, I mean, I can't even rattle off how many Newcastle people are involved in the team now, like have been in their time. So like, what are they doing? What's the special sauce?
Oh, at Newcastle, I think their training, as you sort of touched on, like when you go to university, it's a step up no matter where you go. But yeah, I think like the main thing that Newcastle provides people is like an awareness of like their physical and mental boundaries. Because coming in, I think it was like week 1, I'd never sweat before. And my head coach goes, oh, well, you'll learn really quickly this way. And he like put me at stroke of the 8 and was
Who is that?
Alex Lee.
Was it Alex?
Yeah, I was like, really? Like, really? And I was sat there being like, I'm like a young girl come from school, like quite sheltered. I was there like, this coach is really mean. And like later on, I was like, fucking dickhead. Like, why did you do that to me? Like, really on my first day? And he was like, well, I thought you'd learn, but you didn't really, did you? Like, you're not very good at sweeping. And I was like, well, maybe if you'd actually like coached me. No, but he did coach me. Like, he invested a lot of time into everyone. But yeah, no, that is a running joke that to this day I'm like, I actually can't believe you did that. Like, that was literally you being like, this will be fun. Like, this will be really funny. And it was stressful for me. I was like going up the slide, like, I have no idea what to do. And like, I was very much just in my head, like, it's not that hard. Like, put your blade in, Lola. But yeah. That
is hilarious. He probably thought, like, if you sit behind some other people, you might get to, like, start watching too much, etc. But if you're in a stroke seat, you literally like have to like figure it out.
It would have been good for me to watch other people that actually know what they're doing. Like, eventually I would sit behind people like Em Ford and like Nicole Lamb, who are like very experienced, very like good rowers. And so like sitting behind them was like really helpful, or like even better being like sandwiched in between them, because you feel like, okay, I'm being looked after, and then you get out of your head a bit more. But when you're in the stroke seat and everyone's staring at you, and you know that not only do you know that you don't know what you're doing, but you know they all know that you don't know what you're doing, because he's like announced being like, she's never swept before, like down the megaphone. I'm sat there like, oh my God, I want to like jump out of this boat right now, but I'm scared of the river, so no, I don't.
We'll have to ask him about it when we get him on.
Yeah. So it all went uphill, downhill from there?
Uphill. Yeah, no, I mean, it was no one really took themselves too seriously at Newcastle. Like, there's no one person that's bigger than the team. And that is also something that like I would hope all universities have, but I know Newcastle has that. So it means like, as terms of like a team bonding experience, like everybody respects and like trusts each other. Like, you have the novices that pretty much after like rowing for like 2 or 3 months, they get thrown into like Angelo's program, which is intense and it's hard. So, you know, you're sat there thinking, well, if I'm struggling on these 1500s and I'm looking over at this novice who's literally been rowing for 3 months and they're doing it, well, like, if they're doing it, so can I. And it's that sort of like team bonding experience which like lifts everyone.
You're not going to give up first, are you? On any training session. It doesn't matter if Thursday mornings are lower body weights and afternoon is the 1450.
Yeah.
Just doing it.
And that was it. They were saying like, we don't care if you go out the night before and you are like hanging from hell like the next day. Just come and just do the session, and that's fine. Like, work hard, play hard, do everything that we tell you to do, and you can do whatever you want to do type thing. And that was sort of like the respect and the freedom that you don't really have as a junior, because you're living in your parents' house. You're not going to just like run around like absolute idiots all the time. But at uni, like, we were like just constantly like, just doing whatever we wanted with your friends, but also training hard and having a great time. So
I remember in Freshers Week turning up to like a 3-6k ergo. Like, I've not slept much.
Not UT2 though.
No, not UT2.
No. Just to clarify, they're never UT2. That 3-6Ks was like as hard as you can.
Threshold,
Yeah,
I don't think UT2 exists at Newcastle.
No, it doesn't. They did say that. They were like, as soon as you turn up, they go, do you like UT2? And I was like, yeah. And they went, say goodbye to it. I was like, oh no.
Yeah, that's kind of how it went. I remember turning up absolutely battered, Freshers Week. Like, you don't get much sleep. You're kind of half hungover. Like, my nose is bleeding and I'm about to do this, the last 12k.
Yeah.
And I'm just kind of showing like my bleeding nose to Chiro, who was the coach
like,
at the time. Yeah. He was like, and what do you want me to do?
Yeah.
You want to do the session or what? Like, okay, Chiro.
No, the coaches definitely just like, they just have fun with it a lot of the time, and it's easy for them to have fun with it because they're not killing themselves in the session. But they do love and like put everything into that program. Like, they have invested years, like decades into that club. And I think it really does show, like, when you walk through those doors, like, if you're having a discussion with the coach and you're talking about your frustrations or something, like, sometimes they'll get frustrated back, because for them it's not just like a job to sort of produce medals. Like, they fully believe in like the Newcastle spirit, like the Blue Star. Like, they always talk about that, and everyone always takes the piss being like, oh, Blue Star, but like, they really do believe in like this sort of like Blue Star ethos and like this Blue Star spirit. And like, you can joke about it as much as you want, but like, as an alumni network, like, we all stay extremely close and we all stay connected. And like, you can look back on those sessions, which at the time you were sat there like, I am freezing, I am in so much pain, and like, why do we have another 7 3Ks to do? Like, what the hell? Like, why? But like, you look back on it now and like, I'm smiling. So it can't have been like that bad.
Absolutely.
Definitely, yeah. You see that coming through. Like, I came up with like some of the old alumni, like Fred Gill, George Rossiter, Mason. Like, to see like the passion that they have for the system. Like you say, even like Sam Arnott and stuff, and like Tim Clark, like some of those boys who got like, was it like, I think it was when I was running, like Ed Ford, he was like the one with the car, so they used to drive them down, and they had like Blue Star stickers on the car.
So many Blue Star stickers everywhere.
Yeah, like wasn't there some of them had got the Blue Star tattoo?
Oh, so many boys get that Blue Star tattoo on them now, and some of them are small and some of them are huge. And you're just like,
no, but you can definitely appreciate like that they've bought into it. Obviously, they believe the system, and like we've talked before about you work harder for your mates, and if you're in a system and you trust each other and you have that like trust in the program, and like clearly you can see from the athletes that Newcastle are putting into the team now, like it's obviously working.
Yeah, you're not turning up to training and being like, "What's this Newcastle thing?" That you walk into the boathouse and then you see Little Italy. You're like, "Okay, I know where I am."
Yeah,
like the amount of Italian that would be like just printed on kit.
You've got like the Newcastle's like Canataggio.
Yeah. And everyone was always like, well, what's that? And then we go on training camps to Italy now. And then, I'm like, oh, I know some Italian. 2 words.
Is it 2 words?
No, as in more just like when the locals always come up to you when you're away, and like us as we are the only ones there, the women's squad, but like we were quite close to a town, and you're walking around in like your shorts and your t-shirt or whatever. And like we would have locals come up to us and like just like an old Italian lady came up to me and like patted my leg and just went, strong. And I went, yeah. And she goes, what sport? And I go, Canataggio. And she was like, see. But like other times they came up to us and like, this didn't happen to me, because I mean, if this happened to me, I would have cried. But this woman came up to a bunch of us and she was like stroking arms and she goes, rugby? And the girls were like, like, as if you think it's acceptable just to come up to us, touch us, and then be like just naming like random sports, which like obviously being muscular and everything is great, and like as women, like it's not like an insult, but they were just naming like the like muscular, like the bodybuilding, rugby, like all of this. And we just sat there like, do you want to ask? Like instead of just saying like, what do you look like? Just ask.
Yeah. Imagine walking up to like someone who's a bit overweight and tapping them and be like, sumo wrestler?
Yeah. I was like, okay, if that one comes up next, I'm actually just going to turn around and go. It's like,
yeah, at least that one didn't come up. I guess. Yeah. I was on a flight to France once for a training camp, sat next to a lovely French woman who spoke almost no English, but really wanted to talk to me and find out what sport I was. And I didn't know the French Aveyron. I didn't know it at the time. And I was just like, because you're sat in like, so I couldn't really like do the rowing action. So I was and she was like,
stupid.
No, and I was like, oh my god, like, and I'm looking around like no one else is next to me.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this is weird.
Yeah, like how do you translate? Like, give me a pen.
Or for us, it's always like basketball. Like when you're a tall guy, like basketball, like no basketball. Like rowing. Oh, is it good to be tall for rowing? Well, look at us. Yeah, probably.
I can sort of deduce that. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So then Newcastle, so 2017 was your first year. Did you do 3 years or 4?
So I joined so I left school 2016, joined that September, 16, 17, then graduated 2019.
So the end of Newcastle was your under 23?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had one more year of under 23s after that, but that was COVID.
Yeah.
We went to Sarasota, which was like a fun one to go to.
Yeah.
Because I'd actually never been to America, actually. So, I mean, it's not like you're actually going to America when you're, or like going these places when you go with a rowing trip. But, you know, it was like, oh, somewhere new. And yeah, that was a success because we won that. Yeah, we won that. So we didn't.
Nothing more to say.
Well, no, I was about to say we won that as well. But I was like, that as well is unnecessary. Like we were going into it, like we felt like we were going well, but I think the first couple of races, from what I remember, we kind of struggled to find like our confidence and our footing in it. So by the time that we got to the final, we weren't like seated in a very good lane, and we weren't sort of like watched as a crew to beat, but we hadn't had a row yet that we felt like actually reflected our like rhythm, speed, like all of that. Like we hadn't found our rhythm yet, but we did in the final, and obviously it went well. So yeah.
So would this be the first performance where you beat your older sister? Had she done under 23s?
She hadn't done under 23s. So I was very excited going to under 23s. I was sat there like, I'm out of her shadow, like for this like small moment, you know? Yeah. Because up until that point as well, like as you said, at the rowing world, like everyone seems to know everyone. So if I said, oh, hi, my name's Lola, and they went, oh, isn't your surname Anderson? I go, yeah. And then a couple sentences in or something, they'd be like, do you have an older sister? I say, yeah, Amber, like Amber Anderson. Yeah, Amber's your older sister. You're her little sister. And I'd be like, Yes.
It's
Yeah,
funny,
like-
you did that to me when I turned up to Newcastle. It was like, what's your name? Pete. Polish Pete, yeah?
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I don't know if this is a good
Oh God, I
thing or
don't
a bad
remember.
thing.
I do not remember doing this, so I'm sorry if I made you feel
No,
awkward.
no, it was
Sorry.
just no, it was just kind of like you never know if someone like instantly recognizes you,
Yeah.
but you don't know whether it's a good connotation or a bad connotation. Like,
Yeah.
is it a good Polish Pete or is it a bad? You know?
It's just any time you're referred to as someone's little sister when you're like 20 at this point in time, it's not a bad feeling, and I wasn't ever like insulted by it, but you're kind of sat there like, I feel a bit too old to be called someone's like little sister.
Yeah, I rode with Matt and George has really had enough of being called Matt's brother.
Yeah.
Like Matt was
You,
his brother.
you don't want to be like
I'm
Matt.
George.
You don't want to be like Matt's brother.
Yeah,
you don't
it's
want to be
hard.
Amber's sister.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
I've got the reverse now, whereas my brother is now dating Susie. So
yeah.
obviously 10 years ago, like everyone knew who I was like in rowing, and like Art was my brother. He didn't row, but like he
Yeah.
was around a lot. So like Tom Clark's brother. But now I'm like Susie's boyfriend's brother. So it's like gone like the other way around. Yeah, it's funny.
It's quite fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was just going to ask you, like, obviously, like culminating your university experience with the under 23 gold, how would you feel Newcastle has sort of like helped you shape as an athlete? What are some of the memories that you look back on, some of the hardships, some of the fun, just in general, if we were to just kind of give a gist of what you can expect in the
Yeah.
Blue Star?
So my personal experience is like quite a hard one to sum up, because I feel like when I talk about rowing at Newcastle, sometimes it can sound like unintentionally negative. Like when I say that for a while, like I put so much pressure on myself that I wasn't enjoying the sport, like that had nothing to do with Newcastle. It just coincided that I was there. But because I was at Newcastle, I think if I'd gone elsewhere, like I could have just fallen through the cracks, to be honest, a little bit. But as discussed, like Newcastle really values their like community, their team spirit, like looking after the club. And so although I had come in with the intent to just trial and try and go beyond university rowing into what was senior rowing, by the end, I was just sat there saying like, I feel like I'm letting you down by saying this, but like, I think I want to kind of like give up on that dream and just find rowing as the sport that I loved to do again. And once I had found that, as I say, like things bounced back for me, and it all worked out brilliantly in the end anyways. But the main thing that I look back on when I think about Newcastle is like, yeah, not how hard the training sessions were, or like not how tough like balancing that sort of work life, university life, like with rowing, and trying to like have a uni life outside of the sport and trying to get your degree done and everything like that. Like what I remember is just being at that club. I can remember everything from like the changing rooms, how like cramped the crew room would get because everyone's just like squashed in one room, like the boats, when like wading out in like the mud, like all of these experiences, like whether or not they were positive at the time or they were like great memories at the time, like everything when I look back is just surrounded by this, like, and we loved it because we were such a close team. Like that team ethos, that sort of community, that spirit was there every day. Like you were having a bad day, somebody was there to pick you up. You were having a good day, you were there to pick someone else up. And that you could just rely on that like non-stop. I had, it's a really small story, but like I had a pair of like earrings, which for girls, it's like, oh, they're earrings. So sorry if there are any guys listening to this, but I had a pair of earrings that my dad had given me. And he hadn't passed yet, but he was unwell during my time at uni, which was part of, I think, perhaps why I put so much pressure on myself, because I wanted to like prove the people that had invested time in me that I was worth investing in. And I had taken off like one of my layers and it had ripped the earring off and it had like pinged into the lake, well, not the lake, the river. And I just went very quiet for the rest of the session. And at the end, one of the girls behind me, who ended up being like president of the boat club, and she doesn't row there anymore, but she's still hugely part of it, like Kat Bulmer. She knew how much those earrings meant to me. And I just said to her, I was just like, I feel sick. Like I've just lost that earring. And like I've worn those earrings every day for like 2 years now. Like they've been with me every rowing race. They've been with me every important thing that I've done. And I just feel really bummed out. And I came to training the next morning and she'd bought me a pair of earrings, the same style, everything, to replace them with a card, like chocolates. And she'd written this lovely note in it being like, these obviously don't replace the ones that you've lost, but like, you know, I hope you can make some new good memories with these. And that was just the type of teammate that you had there. Like people would just go out of their way to do anything, whether it was big or small, to make you feel like you had like a family away from home. And so that is, when I look back on Newcastle, it's stuff like that where I'm like, it's impossible for me to sort of look back and say that I had anything but a good time there.
That's what Dave Bowles said, friendships formed in adversity are the strongest. Like, the training that you hear about from Newcastle is so savage, but it creates, like you said, it obviously creates a bond between all the people there. And like anyone who's, I've never had to do 1500s, so I'm not in that gang, but I think anyone who's done it like understands.
It's funny looking back on those sessions though. They're so funny.
Yeah. What's the other one that it's like a certain distance, because it's like the distance Angelo
4,103. I can't even remember. I've blocked it out. Those ones you had to do that before Christmas and then directly after Christmas to make sure that like you hadn't completely gone off the rails over Christmas. And
for 2 days.
They were free rate. Yeah, like they were free rate and you had to do them as hard as you could. And I was just there like, why am I doing like 16, 17K flat out? Like, this is awful. Like, actually awful. But again, like, you work out ways, like after a while, and it's the same on our current program at Caversham, like some of the sessions that we've got, there's no other way to describe them other than just like biblical. Like, they're just disgusting.
It's to break, because your biggest limitation is what you feel you're capable of. And so those sessions break you down to the point that you're like, you've been halfway in the middle. Used to sit on sessions, we have a hard session. I'd be like, at the end, when we just coached at college, whatever, I'd be like, right, everyone who had a thought at some point in that session that they couldn't finish it, put their hand up. Like, everyone puts their hand up. But we all finished it, didn't we? And like, we did. And you're like, see?
It's and like confidence building.
It just starts going. And every time you go into a session and you hear that voice say like, I can't finish this. Yeah. And then you finish, you're like, oh, like I don't have to listen to that. I'm actually got more than I think.
Like, people would be lying if they said there were times during those programs where they didn't hate it. Like, they went there like, why am I here? Like, why am I doing this? Like 1500s, like it's pretty hard to sit there and be like, I love this. Like, especially because these are all after university. Like, so if you were lucky and you finished early, then you could start your session early. But the 1500s would take me like 2 hours, 10 minutes, 2 hours, 20 minutes, something stupid. And then you're sat there, like, if you've only been able to start it at 6 o'clock, which some people would only be able to start it then, it's like 9 o'clock and you're on your way home. You haven't even really like had dinner yet because you started it at 6, and then you've got a training session the next morning at 6:30. You're sat there like, why? Why? But yeah, you look back on it now and you're like, we did finish all of those sessions and we did do them. And isn't that mad? Because they sound stupid when you listen to them like that.
Yeah, it's all more to like your point of like the team spirit that is created during those sessions. And I remember like being at one of like the very first parties, and I think I was speaking to Fred Crawshaw.
Yes.
And I just said to him, like, the program is obviously brutal.
Yeah.
How do you guys like cope with it? Like, because this is like week 2. Like, how do you like do that for like 3 or 4 years? And he said, like, man, you like see all these parties around and everyone having fun, like that's how, because like, we work really hard together, but we also like that's where we bond, and then we can like keep pushing each other through. And that was just like, okay, that's the pathway. Like, you buy in for the team, but then you also like the team pays dividends.
Cool. So again, like, it's interesting to hear from what you said, obviously like in the team and in Worlds that we spoke about how like trying to be process driven, and how at Newcastle, when you started kind of falling out of love with the sport, it was maybe because you were looking at like being the end goal.
Yeah.
And what made you fall back in love with it was being process driven. And I think that's a point that we've heard from other athletes before, and it's like super important. You can't just focus on the end goal. You have to sort of be thinking about day to day. So that's something you did. You fell back in love with sport. Under 23s, obviously gold medal. That's pretty awesome. From that point on, then were you like back in thinking maybe this is something I could do for a living?
Yeah. After that, I thought, okay, well, I'm not really going to like give up on the dream quite yet. I wasn't really sure what the dream was. I think quite a lot of the time as well, like when you think about, for me, when I think about like the end result, it sounds a bit silly, but like you can feel a bit like embarrassed by admitting like quite how like bold your dreams were. Because I was sat there like, okay, you've only gone to like juniors and stuff, so you, as a junior, you can't be sat there saying, I want to go to the Olympics, which, don't get me wrong, loads of people do say that and it works perfectly well for them. But for me, I was kind of sat there thinking that's like way too bold. Yeah, that's only for like the best of the best. Like, why would I ever be like that standard? Like, I can train and I can try and get there, but like, I don't want to come across like cocky by saying that's my goal.
It makes the task too large. You can put yourself off it, be like, oh, I'm miles from there. Like, that was a crazy thing. Yeah, but I person goes back to the process.
Yeah, I totally get what you mean though. Like, feeling almost embarrassed, but be like, if I actually say what my actual dreams and goals are, Like people are just going to think I'm a raging lunatic.
Or they're going to think that I'm like delusional or like all of these things. And like realistically, when has anyone ever said to me that their goal was to like get into the senior team? And I've been there like, good luck. Like I've never thought that. So I don't know why I thought they were going to think that for me. But that was just sort of like the narrative in my head. So I had this sort of like weird contrast where I was saying like, well, actually I do want to do this, but like, how do I admit that I want to do that without people sort of thinking that I'm like crazy? So I was just trying to stay like one day at a time, one club at a time. But then, when you've finished uni, if you're not finishing uni and like going into a job, I think it's pretty clear that you're trying to get something else out of the sport, and like you're maybe going to try and go for the next step from under 23. So at that point, I was like, okay, well, obviously I am trying to maybe get into the senior team, but I have no idea for when. And so I just kind of like, cracked on at Molesey, had a great time there. But unfortunately, it was like a month after joining Molesey that my dad actually did then pass away, which like complicated things for me as a result. Like I was at training like normally, but you're trying to get to know people at a club, and you're kind of sat there in your head being like, I hope they don't sort of think of me as like the girl to be like pitying because dad's just died. So I was like trying to make friends with people, but also trying to deal with grief, trying to not let my grief affect my sort of like outward presentation of like who I was as a person, but like kind of struggled with that on some days because obviously some days are just more emotional than others. And then was throwing myself into work at Surbiton, which also had like quite a lot of memories for me tying into my dad, because that's where I started rowing because of him and other family sort of like relationships. So that was kind of like a stressful time period. And then COVID hit, and that really just kind of like wiped the slate clean. So couldn't really think about much after that.
So if anything, like almost in a good way, it kind of just gave you a bit of space to work out what was going on in your own head.
Yeah. I kept sort of like just trying to fill my days. When I'm like mentally stressed, as I say, I either like to row because it's something to like keep me busy and something to distract me. But if I can't row, then I like to just do as many things as possible and like just see as many friends, be out and about, like just fill my days. And so I was going straight from rowing to working, and I'd come home at like 7 and then wake up the next day and like do that all over again. So I didn't really give my time, myself time to sort of like actually process like the last year of what had happened. And COVID was kind of like a brutal way to like force me to slow down and like process. And once I dealt with that a little bit more, like moving to Leander was also like quite a healthy thing for me to do in terms of being like, Molesey also has like connotations of my dad used to love that club because Amber rode there, and like all of these sort of like family memories of us being there. So it was quite nice to go somewhere that was separate to like my rowing history and somewhere new.
Yeah, so I was just about to ask you like what made you choose Molesey in the first place and then Leander, but I think you've just kind of summed that up.
Yeah, like my dad was always quite vocal about like rowing and rowing clubs. He knew, he liked to keep in like the know with like where was the place to be, and he always had like a huge amount of respect for both Molesey and Leander. But then it also just made sense, like coming home from uni, I didn't have to like think about getting accommodation. I didn't have to think about like doing anything like that. I was just home. And in terms of like my dad's condition, it was comforting to be like, I'm right there in case anything happens. And then I also could go back to my old club, sort of try and give back in a way that I felt like they'd invested lots into me. And it was only a short year in the end, but it was nice to do.
Yeah, it's cool. As much as it can be boring talking about COVID again and again, I think it's been really interesting speaking to rowers about how they dealt with it and how driven people have kind of made the best of a bad situation, and speaking to a lot of different people about how they've turned that, like Miles Beeson kind of making a business almost out of having that extra time, and like just little ways. It's been really interesting. And I think for people who listen to like hear about different ways to deal with, because life just keeps going, and like whether you want to row, even if you want to row and you put everything into that, life will keep going and things keep happening, good and bad. I think it's pretty cool to hear you kind of swing it around and make the best of it.
I think like you said, like regeneration as well, just before like just having that bit of a period where you can dial in your own but also like sort your personal life out, because like after university, let's be honest, like there was not probably at uni a lot of time where you had any time to yourself outside of training or doing a degree. So like actually slotting in that time also outside of having a job is like pretty rare that you like get to find it. But then going into Leander, many expectations. Were you excited? What What were your kind of like objectives as you walked through the Pink Hippo
I was
Club?
very excited. I was also quite nervous because we had people like Hannah Scott and Georgie Brayshaw and my, she rode in the quad with me in Sarasota, Ella Toa. We were all going to be there, like training as a collective sculling group. And we were part of like that like Project Paris group that Shep had set up to try and sort of help funnel in people from under 23s into seniors as like in preparation for this Olympic cycle. And as I said, I got injured quite early on as a result from like probably not being like the most switched on with my like technique and stuff during lockdown. And I was quite nervous because it was the first time that I was going to have like a bunch of super competitive scullers to sort of be around and like test speed with and train with side by side every day. So it was almost like going to a trials, but like having that every day. So that was a really useful sort of like development tool for me, and would have been if I had not got injured, but I was on the bike then for that year, and the coaches were just then really good at just checking in on me and making sure I didn't feel like deserted or sort of like forgotten just because I was on the bike, which they did really well because they do find a way to be very like invested in like everyone's scores, like no matter what they're on. So yeah, it was very good.
And then you got to race in the single.
Yeah, that was epic. I really didn't expect that opportunity to come because I didn't really know that they offered that sort of opportunity out in like the build up to the Olympics, where they sort of be like, well, we're not going to race these races. That like concept was quite new to me. So when they said that people were going to go to a senior World Cup, I was like, oh wow, okay, but I didn't really think it was going to affect me. Went to trials and like won in the single, and then was told, yeah, so you're going to go in single. And I went, what? Me? And it was a real mix of emotions because, as I say, like around this time, and it's fine, doesn't affect me like in the day to day now, but around that time for me, like it was really still quite hard for me to row each day without like feeling that association, that tie to my dad. And it was one of those things where I was like, this would have been a huge milestone that he would have been so proud to see. So I remember in the build up to going, I kept having like crying fits where I would be like just very emotional, like out of nowhere for no reason. And then like 5 minutes later, I'd be like absolutely fine. So people in the team at that point must have been like, is the skull okay? Because she's literally just like crying.
It's not nowhere for no reason, I think.
No, but they wouldn't know as well. Because I didn't want to sort of be that person that was like, by the way, everyone, like this has happened, because they didn't know me. And so I was like, why would I want the first thing they know about me to be like, oh, like she's mentally like in a rough spot right now. So I was like, I'll just leave it and it's fine. Like I won't cry every day. And then I was like, oh, okay, maybe I will. Like every other day then, like fine.
Yeah. What's important is that you found a way to manage it and sort of like still come out on the other side of it, which is really, really difficult, by the way. And like,
I really like when we spoke to Paddy, what Paddy spoke about. He was like, with coaching girls, like sometimes, we'll have difficult conversations and they might cry, and that's okay. And like they're a bit more emotional than guys, and I don't need to change the way that I am with them. It's just, he's kind of like it's just part of it, and it's not a problem. I was like, that's a really forward thinking way of just being like, that's just, it's cool. Yeah, I don't need to change the way. Process. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then just let it happen.
Yeah, because at this time the tears were definitely for like confusion of like grief, basically. Yeah. But I am now very aware of the fact that if I'm crying now, it really annoys me because I cry particularly when I'm just frustrated or angry. I don't really cry when I'm sad anymore. It's just when I'm like annoyed or angry about something, and it's the emotion just like hits me, can't control it, and then I cry, and then I'm sat there, I'm frustrated at myself for looking so emotional, and I just go round and round in circles. I'm sat there being like, oh God, I really don't want this person to feel guilty because I'm like crying and they feel like they need to now be like softer with me. Like I wish I wasn't crying, but I can't actually control it. Like I'm not sad, I'm not miserable, like none of this is like pity, like this is just my anger process, and I wish I looked more like angry. I just look like sad, but I'm just it's just my process.
Everyone's different, like except like just accept it, be aware of it, and like you can kind of move.
Hopefully it doesn't happen that often, but
So in terms of racing in a single at your first senior World Cup, obviously you got to medal.
Yeah.
How was that as a regatta, as an experience? Were you nervous, or like did you come away after it thinking like it actually wasn't so bad?
I couldn't ever imagine racing a single. Like I spent most of my time
senior international.
Yeah, I was so nervous. Like I have never felt like more sick on the day of my finals. because I went in being like, I expect nothing from this, and get everything to gain. But I had no expectation of a medal. I didn't even know if a final would be realistic. I was there like, I've spent 6.5 months of this year like just on a bike, started rowing maybe like 3 weeks before final trials, and then have been selected to go on this. So like in terms of my preparation, like this has been abysmal, but like whatever, this is fine. Went there, like we were in Sabaudia, which is like beautiful. We've got like lovely white sandy beaches around. So for the first bit, I was just trying to be like, this is holiday, like this is so nice.
Keep the pressure off.
Yeah, like racing started and was just pleasantly surprised like how it was going. And then by the time I got to the final, and I had people being like, oh, like, like maybe like you could be in for it, like with the push of a medal type thing. And I sat there like, I don't want to hear this. Like, I really don't want to hear this. And like my roommate Katie Wilkinson Feller, she was also racing the single, but her final was just like slightly before mine in terms of time. So she came back from her final and she was buzzing. She was like, I'm done, thank God, best feeling ever, you're gonna love it. And I was like sat there just like rocking, being like, I can't hear this right now, like could barely eat like anything, was just like so nervous. Got to the start, didn't take the first stroke because I was so nervous, and then went, no, you have to wake up now and like just get back into it. It was fine. But yeah.
So you're actually like a fantastic single sculler. You're just too humble to admit it. But like, I'm just really interested. Like, how do you actually like approach that kind of race where you're under pressure? There is a possibility of a medal here, but you're also like, you need to be confident in yourself as a single sculler, because otherwise the boat doesn't move if you don't drive it. How do you just approach the race plan, the tactics? Do you adjust to stay in the field, or do you just go like, full blinds on and I'm just doing my thing, whatever happens, happens? Probably
more of the latter. Like in a crew boat, we have tactics, we have race plans, we have calls. So I can't afford to just sort of like switch off, because I need to respond when Hannah's making calls to move, and I need to do my bit when it's like we're doing a certain push or something. So I can't really like zone out altogether. But in a single, and as I've mentioned, like I tend to try and be less like result driven and more just like in the process. So I think part of the reason why I was so nervous racing that single was I didn't quite appreciate yet at that point how easy it is for me to sort of like get carried away and get like sucked into like a sort of spiral of like, this is on the table, but you could lose this because this could go wrong, or this could go wrong, or this could go wrong. And like, I can get quite sidetracked by that. So instead, for me, like I prefer very much so just to be like, okay, well, you're going to do like your normal start, you're going to do your normal like row, however that comes. And then like, you'll see what you get. And as long as it's good, like feels good to you, that's fine.
Yeah.
Because also I do believe that with the training that you do, like that gets you to the race on race day, like you've already done the work anyways. So there's no point in me being like, I have to pull out something special today, or I have to do something like over the top amazing, because realistically like the time for that was all in the preparation, winter, spring, summer, like all of that. So there's no time for me to do anything different. I just have to do what I do every day.
So then when you didn't take the first stroke,
that was great. Yeah, that was brilliant.
Were you like, I need to make up for this?
I was just like, it's extra special because you've got a camera just pointing just at you, just to catch that moment where you're there like, attention, go. And like I took one of my blades was buried and one of them wasn't. So I literally just like flew backwards and then went, okay, nice. And just came up and was like, okay. And like previously I'd been like out with the mix of everyone at the start and been able to sort of like transition in pace and sort of feel like I had some control. So this was one of the first times that I was like left out the back and was thinking, okay, well, medal might be gone now, but that's fine. Like just settle into it. Like it's fine. And I just, again, like allowed myself just to enjoy like the race process, the rhythm, all of that. And then about 500 to go, I looked over and realized I was actually like on the bow of the German sculler, Pia Greiton. And like her and I, we see each other at races all over the place now. And we always go up and say hi and like catch up because she came to Henley after that as well. And it's just funny, yeah, like in a single, you meet people and you can be like friends with people almost instantly because, you know, you've got that shared interest in that.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Her and I had like a very, very, very tight finish. So for ages after the race, we were just kind of sat there like, so like, who do you think won? You're there like, well, I hope it was me, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, single scull is definitely, yeah, like this person's as crazy as I am.
Yeah.
She's my friend.
Yeah.
So in 2021, I imagine the World Cup 3 was before Henley. That was that
Yeah, it was
year
before
where it
Henley.
swapped.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then after that, you were selected to race at Henley in a single. Were you coming in thinking like, okay, this is mine for grabs, or?
Well, so Ross, when I came back, he said, look, sculling wise, you can either do your single or you can do a double. And like Georgie and Jess Layden will be around. So you can do that. But like to me, doubles, I really struggle with them because I get in my head quite a lot about like every single stroke. And I feel like the need to apologize for everything that goes wrong in the boat, because I'm sat there being like, I'm not very good at balancing the boat sometimes. So I'm sat there being like, oh my God, Jess, who's a lovely girl, but I didn't know her very well at this point. She's like one of my like rowing idols at this point. I'm sat there like, she is going to want to strangle me because she's trying to like just take a stroke and I'm there like wobbling about the place. But realistically, in Jess's head, like she doesn't care. Like she's the most laid back, easy, like down to earth person to row with. But in my head, I was there like, I can't deal the pressure of like rowing with someone like her because I'm not quite ready for that basically. So I'll do the single because it's like, it's my pace, my style, and I'll never really probably get the opportunity to do that again. So that's cool. Like, let's do that.
That makes sense.
Yeah, went into it being like, who knows what will happen, but let's just do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It seems like you're getting the best outcomes from when, like you said, when you just don't worry too much about what's going on. Yeah.
I have learned through like trial and error over the years that I am definitely like, I pressure is fine. Like I can deal with pressure, like external pressure, but my internal pressure is too much. Basically, like the event, the surroundings, the racing, like that's fine. Like I can enjoy that, particularly if I'm feeling calm. But when I'm in my head being like, no, this is like a world championship, so like you better step up because otherwise you're going to get eaten alive, then I start to really panic and freak out. So long as I stay calm internally, like I can pretty much deal with what's going on around me.
Yeah.
But if I start like chipping away at myself from the inside, it's game over.
It's a common trait. Like it's part of the trait that gets you where you are. It's also the one that can kind of get too much, and it's something we've talked about with a lot of athletes before as well. Yeah, so I think so for some people, like you said, it's about learning and understanding what works for you. Me personally, I was one of those people that was like, I want to think about every single thing that can go wrong, and then know that I've thought about it, so that if it comes up, I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, and that's calming to some people.
Yeah, but then other people are like, if I start thinking about everything that could go wrong, I'm just going to I'm going to pull myself out of it.
I just want to like fall back on my preparation. Like, okay, this can go wrong, but it's fine because anytime anything comes around, I can just deal with it on the spot. So I'm probably going to be strong enough to deal with that thing. But what you said about internal pressure, like, you're sitting there like thinking Jess is going to strangle and murder you. She probably didn't even notice that you were wobbling.
Jess really didn't care. No, like Jess was like, she and I then ended up rooming together for like 3 months that next year when we were in the quad together that year before last. And she and I were just like sisters basically by the end of it. We were just like annoying each other, winding each other up, laughing at everything. Like we were probably really annoying to be around, but like she doesn't care about anything like that. So long as she feels like, like you're just bringing your best of what you can do, like that's enough for her. Like you don't need to be perfect. You just need to respect that her time is your time and your time is her time.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Makes sense. Shout out to Jess. Definitely want to get her on a podcast.
I've had similar experiences in a pair, but what you can do in a pair, if you think the other guy's way better than you, is you can just keep it on your side.
Yeah.
Like you can't do that in a double, but like in the pair, you just like, but I've always had, I rode with a guy who, he was doing it. I was like, dude, like, it's okay. Like you don't have, he's just like forcing it down so that my blade would like never touch the water.
Yeah.
I'm like, we're not going to get anywhere if you're just like,
just let me row.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't mind if it touches that. It's okay. Like we're rowing a pair. Don't worry about it. He's just like, like keeping it on his side.
Yeah.
So how did your first victory in the Princess Royal Challenge Cup at Henley come about? Good feeling? How did it compare to the World Cup?
I think it was like it was following because the World Cup, I was just kind of I can't believe I'm here for like a medal ceremony and all of this, like this is mad. And then as I say, like at that time I was also still like, it was one of the first races that we'd done since COVID. It was one of the first big races. It was the first big race I'd done since my dad had passed. So it was quite like a bittersweet sort of feeling. But then by Henley, I'd sort of like processed those emotions, got it through and out of my system. And although I was like thinking about him quite a lot, like I was able to just enjoy the feeling for what it was, and then also appreciate like all of my other family that supports me, because like I speak about my dad a lot when it comes to rowing, because he was part of the beginning, and then like obviously has like remained an inspiration, like an influence for me in that. But like, you know, my mum sacrificed like countless hours, like driving me to and from, and like my sisters, you know, they all help me too. So like it's nice when an event doesn't become just solely fixated on the feelings around one person that you've lost, and you can appreciate like everyone that's still with you, still like celebrating you. So that was cool. And like Henley, obviously, like as an event goes, like it's like the most sort of like party atmosphere rowing event that we have. So to win there, like it is cool, because like the whole ceremony there is like a big sort of like piss up party basically, and that's like one of the best parts about rowing, is that afterwards like everyone is there for like a night out, and they are there for a good time. So yeah, that was really cool.
Awesome. And then, so I guess next thing is stepping up into the squad.
Yeah.
How was that? And again, another lift up, different level, or have you kind of been competing on that level already? Like, how was the training, and how did you find it?
So my housemates, and I still live with them now, but so James Rugkin was my housemate, and so he was in the team, and so he had kind of like been quite good to talk to beforehand, because he was like, this is realistically like what you can sort of expect, and came in, and the program was a step up from what we were used to at Leander, but like nothing crazy in terms of like still like a British rowing program.
Compared to Newcastle as well.
Compared to Newcastle as well, you're like, okay, like if I can do junior step up to uni step up of Newcastle uni, like this is fine, like this is manageable. And then like that was all going well. Like did a few other races, trials and stuff, that was all going good. And then Andrew Randall came in, and he switched the program up again, which he switched it up in a Newcastle style way. So it was like la 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 la, and then it was poof, like all the way up here, like kind of blindsided. Like we all knew that someone was coming in that had a slightly different like ethos to sort of the British rowing style one that we had for the women's team, at least at the time. But yeah, when he came in, like that did all like hit us and take us by surprise. And yeah, like the end of that year, the results showed like it was working. It was a good program, and it still is from this year's results. But yeah, that was a jump, and that was a surprise.
Yeah. In what way?
The intensity, like the mileage, the intensity, all of that sort of, I mean, not literally doubled, but kind of quite close to that, actually, to be honest. Yeah, it all just sort of like shot up. And in particular, it kind of shot up as soon as we'd gone away on a training camp. He arrived like 5 days before we went on our first ever senior rowing team training camp, for me at least. And it was very intense to be like away from home, away from like the buffer that you have from Caversham to then coming back to your space, which Henley is filled with rowers, but like it's still like your space. To not have that, go away on training camp and just be like bombarded with just like constant work. And then also one of his strengths is that he's very like purposeful with meetings and like discussions about like goal setting and what we want to put as our like expectations of the squad. So he would sit us down and be like, what do you think you're doing well right now? What do you think you could do better? And like, what do you want to do well in 5 months time? And what would you like to have like improved? And so like we had some pretty brutal conversations about where we were as a squad at that point and what we needed to do to get from here to here. And so those discussions, the training program, everything was quite draining in one hit. But you came back from that camp, and I feel like if you came out the other end of that camp in an okay space mentally, like the rest of the year was fine.
Yeah.
So a lot of girls might find themselves in a position, you know, just starting out like you, thinking, okay, well, I really enjoy this rowing thing. I want to see where it takes me. And then you like make the step up through the ranks. You go to university, you do quite well. You do GB stuff. And then you finally made it to the senior team. Was it what you expected? Did it match up to the expectations?
No.
How was it to take in?
I think like when you're a junior and like very new and like young in the sport, like we were all like completely obsessed and like in love with the sport. Like there was no part of the sport that I didn't enjoy and love. And perhaps the training back then was maybe also like easier. And so like easier to just sort of like let everything just roll off the other side if it was had a hard session one day. And then like obviously the sacrifices and the demands and the intensity like increase over the years. But by that point in like the rowing relationship, like you've got the foundation, you don't just leave at that point. But like, yeah, had I known what it was like when I started. It'd be quite interesting, be quite interested to see the direct comparison of like what it felt like, what rowing felt like to me when I started in comparison to what it feels like now. Because I would never leave. Like, I love the sport, I love what I do, and like every day I do feel like very lucky to do that. But like the years like do build, and like, you know, the expectations, the pressure, the demands, like everything gets more and more like wrapped up into it, because with each year that you invest, like that's another year that you've dedicated your life to this. So you can't leave unless you feel like you've got the results that you will make you feel like satisfied and happy. So it becomes perhaps like less about, yeah, I do it because I love it, but also like I do it because I've got a point to prove now as well. Whereas when I started out, it was just, I love it.
I quite like, I've never heard anyone like refer to it like a relationship. Like there's like the honeymoon period.
Well, I don't have a boyfriend, so
yeah, no, it works really well. There's that first bit when you start, everything's great, it's all
like
enjoyable,
yeah.
and the more you invest in it, obviously there are hard times, but you're invested more in it, so you stick with it.
Yeah.
I think that's really interesting. I think as well though, like
it's maybe why people find it so hard to walk away from rowing, because it's their like longest ever relationship.
There's like a toxic breakup.
Yeah, it's a toxic relationship by the end, or you love it and you never leave. But
I would say though, like definitely, like from my point of view, you don't want to get caught too much in thinking that you're staying to achieve something that will make other people feel like what you did was worth it. I think you want to make sure you stay in your headspace of, am I happy with what I achieved? Because I think, like, personally for me, there was a point in my career when I was like really struggling with how it was, like struggling with like injury and all the rest of it, and just thinking, but I can't leave now, because, you know, if I don't make it, if I don't go to the Olympics or the senior worlds, like everyone's going to think that I just wasted my time.
This is the toxic part. Yeah.
But then the change for me was really like spending some time in my head and getting to the point of being like, I'm happy with how good I was. Yeah. I know I was good enough for me. I know I got as far as I could have got. Like whether anyone else thinks that what I did was impressive or not really isn't important. And I think that's like pretty important to make sure you keep thinking about what you're doing. You're still staying for you and not for other people. I think you should keep thinking about that.
And like it's hard because it obviously comes and goes in waves. Like when you're in a particularly like hard training block, you can feel like really at the bottom of a hole that you didn't expect to ever really feel. And I think for me as a junior, I had sort of like glamorized expectations of like, oh, well, if I ever made it into the senior team I spoke about before, I was like, oh, you'd be like the best of the best, and you would feel like you're the best of the best, you know, like you don't talk about what your dreams are because it's embarrassing to admit that, because only like perfect rowers get to do that. But as I mentioned also from rowing in doubles and stuff, I often feel like I'm letting the other person down because you don't do everything perfectly. Like you can never do everything perfectly in sport, and like that's not something unique to rowing. So like that feeling of like pressure and expectation to perform like never really goes away. But like I kind of expected my insecurities of like, do I row well enough to really like talk about this to sort of go away, because you'd feel like, oh, well, if you ever get to go to under 23s, like you're obviously doing really well, you're really good, and you get to under 23s and you're like, oh, I don't really feel like that. And then same thing, saying, well, if you get to go to a senior race and you medal in a senior like race event, then like obviously you're like really good. But I was at the start line and I didn't take my first stroke, so didn't feel very good, you know. And likewise, like every single year, like there's never going to be a season where I'm like, oh yeah, I was perfect rower that year, like I did everything perfectly. And so like that sort of expectation of being a junior, of looking at the seniors of my time being like, whoa, like they're like the best rowers in the country, I would never sort of look at or visualize myself in that way. And so you can kind of feel that sort of like imposter sort of syndrome of like, am I really doing it, or like am I really good enough to be doing it? But I'm turning up each day because I love it, and I'm not going to turn down an opportunity.
Well, that's the thing, like if you turn up to the senior training center and like this is the highest level that you could have climbed to, the next step is to either go to the Olympics or go to World Championships and come away with a gold medal. Like there has to be a feeling of pride that carries you, surely, like in thinking like, okay, I'm on the front line for my country, like I'm going to represent this best. This is kind of like resting on my shoulders. Let's make my fellow people proud. I
tend to try and actually like dissociate from thinking about the fact that I'm like rowing for my country, because when I was younger, I used to say, like for my nerves, I used to be like, well, it doesn't matter like what goes wrong, because you've been selected to race this boat 14 GB, which means like you were the best crew they could send. So no matter what happens, like you guys are the best result that you guys could have got. But then, as I say, I think that kind of also like associates to the result too much for me. So I tend to just think about, I really don't think about the other countries as like other countries. And I don't think about myself or my boat as like, we are Great Britain. Like I just think of us as like, this is a group of girls that I like rowing with. Like I didn't think of us as like the Team GB quad.
Yeah. So that's the difference. I think I never really hear British athletes talk about the pride that comes with like representing Team GB, and that's something that's really evident in, like, for example, like where I'm from in Poland. Like if as soon as you get that bald eagle on your as soon as you get the eagle on your chest, you're like, okay, there's a feeling of pride that carries me around. But potentially that's where Britain has an edge, because you're just treating it as another performance. So you like take that extra level of pressure off, and then it kind of makes it easier. Maybe
it can be a lot it can be a lot. You've got so many other things to think of anyway. Like you definitely want to, talking about pressure helps you perform, like understanding that, you know, putting on, like I never used to wear a Worlds all-in-one if I wasn't at Worlds. Like I'd want to, like if I looked down and saw the light blue on my legs, like I knew like it was important. I'd try and have like a separation in that way. But no, like you as well, like you can't think that I'm doing this for my country. You know, you need to kind of be a bit more process driven. But I also think like it's a really interesting thing from speaking there now, having 30 episodes in, like how every athlete, speaking to Olympians, like John Collins was another one for me. It was, you know, like been to 2 Olympics and is sat there saying like, oh, I just didn't think I've done well enough, and like I didn't think I'd achieved enough. And you think, Jesus, it's like I'm sat here thinking like I didn't achieve enough because I didn't get the Olympics. But then there's the guy to get the Olympics, didn't get the medal, and then there's the bronze that didn't get silver didn't get gold didn't get gold twice. Like there's always another level, and like what gets you there is also what can like get you out of your head a little bit. And I think as well, like what you were saying, like the day-to-day stuff, like another thing I struggled with was complaining or like voicing like opinions of like struggling, and have someone not in that team respond and be like, you're getting paid to row, like you should be so happy every day. It's like a dream job. Like
I'm aware that I'm being like, oh, I love it, and I do, but like definitely there are days where I come in, I'm like, oh my god, like really, like have you guys seen the program for this week? Like are they trying to kill us? And there's not one positive sentence that comes out of my mouth, but I'm still there, and I'm still going to find something to laugh at that day. And so at the end of the day, like a lot of the day was hard and not fun, but like am I actually having a fulfilling and like life that I actually enjoy overall? Well, like otherwise I wouldn't be here.
I think the most difficult thing of those two things is thinking that you're the only person thinking that, and I think that's what's like hopefully it's like super helpful to other rowers who are listening to this podcast to understand that everyone feels that way. Like if you hate rowing today, that's okay, because everyone sometimes hates rowing. And if you feel like you're not achieving enough, or you feel like you haven't achieved enough, there are guys who've achieved more than you who feel the same, and there are guys and girls who've achieved less and feel the same. I think that the confidence can come in understanding that. I used to talk to some of my athletes as well. I'd like, in a funny way, I'd be like, oh, so you're kind of struggling in this way. You're not special. Like there's nothing special about how you feel. Like in a good way. Like it's not, you're not on your own. You're not the only one that's ever felt like this. Like it's totally normal, and that's okay. And I think as long as you can understand that those going through those patches is okay, that makes you so much stronger for it. It's not like, oh shit, I need to quit now because I hate this. Like not every day was going to be a day where you like get the most out of yourself mentally, but like on those days, if you can get something technical or something like physical out of the day, well, that's the way that I like to look at it, where I can be like, well, I've come home and I've been like, right, was I able to like mentally like really get stuck in today, or did I kind of like coast through a session or two? Hopefully like those days don't come around often, but when they do come around, okay, well, like, did I push myself physically? Did I get something technically? Okay. Can I be happy? Was it a perfect day? No, but as we've discussed, like not every day is going to be like a sunshine and rainbows, I love rowing day, but that's part of the process. And for me, like just enjoying the day to day doesn't necessarily mean I'm actually enjoying it mentally, but it means I found something to be satisfied with my training with that day. And if I can come to the end of the day and be like, I did my job, then like for me, that's enough to be like next day.
That absolutely has to be the correct way to do this. I mean, John Collins said that Jürgen's mantra was kind of like, you know, it doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be good enough. And like you nailed it. Not every day you're going to be able to feel perfect, because, well, there needs to be that polarity, right? Like if every day's perfect, then every day it just kind of becomes mediocre and average. So
the best you can do on the day.
So after being in your senior team for the first year, and actually being selected to race in a crew for World Championships. How did that come about? What was that like? Did you know you were in the mix from the start?
Yeah, so from the start of the year, so we had like some races. We did, the people returning from Tokyo didn't have to do November trials, so they weren't there. And going into November trials, I felt fairly confident that I was going to have a good shot at like trying to win it. So I won that trials, and that went well. And then we had February trials next. I won that one too, I think. I'm not sure actually. Either won it or came second. Not sure. Then did April trials, and there were some people that were injured, like, or had COVID, because COVID was still around then. And so again, like, because of absences, like from the rest of like the team, I had a fairly like good shot at going in and trying to win it. So won that, and so that put me in like a fairly good position in terms of like being selected. We had some seat racing, which in doubles my favorite boat, but that went well. So like that was fine. Yeah, like I don't know what it is with doubles. Like mentally I hate them, but I don't really have a leg to stand on with that, because so far like I haven't actually done like badly at them, but I just don't like them. So I really like, I can't explain it to the coaches because they're like, but you do well in doubles. So
I think I know what you mean. Like it's the pressure. It's because you're putting the pressure on yourself, and
I'm putting the pressure on myself to be perfect for someone else.
It's the imposter syndrome, and it's like if you're in a quad, like things can go wrong and it can't be attributed to you. But
or
like
if fully my fault.
There's only one other person. Because you get in that mentality of like, oh my god, if I mess this up, they're gonna know that I'm.
And when you're in a single, like if you row in a way that's like not perfect, but like it's how you row. Like I can be comfortable in that. Like I can be comfortable and confident in that. Like stroke to stroke, like the boat's gonna move. But when I'm in a double and I feel like I'm like messing it up, even if I'm not actually messing it up and the other person's not messing it up, and it's just water, it's just conditions, it gets in my head, and then I start to sort of like have that voice, that forefrontal like feeling in my head where I'm like I'm not able to just zone out and focus on the race.
It's like it's the imposter syndrome. For me, it's like he's going to find out that I'm not good at this. Like, do you know what I mean? It's like someone's going to realize that I shouldn't be here.
Yeah, like that's what used to piss Jess off when I was in a boat with her, because I'd be sat there and like I'd do it with literally everyone, and everyone has now got to the point where they're like, just shut up, because every time it just so much just like wobbles. I'm like, sorry, sorry, and they're like, oh my god, like that was literally a duck, Lola, like fucking shut up, and I'm there like, oh, I'm sorry. So I really do hate them, because they make me they make me insecure, and I just don't want to be rowing and like racing feeling like vulnerable. Like it's a really horrible feeling. So I don't like doubles, but that's I have to like them, because
do you generally stroke or bow or either?
I go anywhere, but typically go at bow now, because I like to make calls and sort of like try and control. Also, if I'm at stroke, it's 10 times worse, because I'm sat there like they can see the mistakes that I'm making. So I don't like, please don't look at me right now. Like I just be at the bow and just like messing about, but hopefully like they won't feel or they won't know it, and like I can convince myself that way around.
I spent so long just like what we talk about
yourself down.
With Pete, and just being like, it's like someone's gonna realize I'm not supposed to be in a minute.
That's like, honestly, and when we first started getting in doubles at Caversham, I was like, they're gonna know. I was like, this is awful. And I like, doubles were like the main way that we sort of do our testing and our trials. So I was sat there like, I can move a single and I think I can move a quad, but if I can't move a double, then I'm not gonna be able to show that I can move a quad. Or if I can't move a double, then maybe actually I can't move a quad, and maybe everyone else has been moving the quads for me.
But then it's not
sat there like
getting some results from. So again, like for me, like one of the ways to get through that was then getting some actually like beating some other people who I thought were really good in like a seat race, and being like, oh, like okay, like I am supposed to be.
It was a surprise, because we did some seat racing, and I did well in the doubles, and I was like, oh.
There you go.
Like I thought I was bad at this, and I still don't think I'm great, because honestly, like I just don't know what I do with the balance around the finish. It's like every time you're warming up, like arms only, and it's arms only square blades. So I literally just laugh now, because I sit there and I go, okay, sorry guys, like my blades are just gonna be scraping the entire time, and we are gonna wobble, and then we just start rowing, and it's like, oh, it's okay, it's not perfect, but like it's fine. And does it actually matter that it's not perfect? No, because it's kind of okay.
Is it fast?
Like, is it going fast enough? Okay, then doesn't matter.
I'm just sat here listening, taking this all in because double is actually my favorite boat.
Why?
So
Psycho.
because once
Why?
once you get the double going, it's
You know
one.
I
What do you mean?
Like, what's
What-
wrong
like,
with
what do you
Tell
mean?
me. Like,
What's-
how do
what-
you do that?
Okay, so I really love the double because one, you can like really connect like with the other person when you make a good duo and that double just
Never thought
goes.
that, yeah.
You know, you're just it feels like poetry. Like you can zone out. You just exist at one with the river in the
Do you not
boat.
feel
Like
that in a single? I feel that so much more in a single than I do in a double because there's someone else there. So you're not actually alone to zone out, but you are in a single.
perfect. There's someone else that they say you can zone out because you know they're keeping you honest and accountable. So many times in a single, I just
hate
want to like stop and look at the surroundings and do
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
You've
Fair
got
enough.
someone that keeps you.
Accountable
Yeah.
and then I can like vibe up with that person. But also like the funny thing about like racing in doubles and quads is that not the same ingredients make you fast in the double that make you go fast in the
Yeah.
quad. I never did as well in seat racing quads as I did in like doubles matrices.
Yeah.
Doubles matrices at Leander used to be people that were far better than me in like crew boats, and then come to quads and seat racing. Okay, see you later. Obviously against me, but I don't know. So you've done quite well at trials that year, and then
Yeah.
how did you know quad was on the cards?
So as I said, so if you win trials and then if you win the seat racing, then you're automatically like in the top boat basically. And so that's what happened. And he said that he wanted the top boat that year to be the quad. So then I didn't have to take part in the seat racing that then formed the quad. So then they were just seat racing for the last 3 seats. So from April trials, I was told that I was in the boat. But then again, you never know, like you could get injured. We weren't doing more testing, but like had they decided to do more testing and it hadn't gone well, then I don't know, like maybe they would like reverse. Thing with rowing coaches is, you know, they say a lot of the time, you know, you're safe. And 99% of the time, like that's right. But if unforeseen circumstances happen, it's not like they've lied to you by saying you're fine, you're safe. But like if all of a sudden everything goes tits up and they need to just reshuffle and rejig things, then like you are in jeopardy. So I don't ever really like to be like, okay, they've told me I'm fine, so I'm fine. I would always rather sort of be at least slightly mentally prepared than like underprepared in case they all of a sudden were like, haha, jump in, off you go.
Well, that's the thing. They can't just put a stake in the ground and then just never have it move because you just never know. And like you said, you just never know. Maybe in the last week something's going to happen, a travel arrangement, someone's passport gets banned.
Well, what if I got injured or for like I did this season? Like, what if I got injured right from then to like right before we flew off for Worlds? Okay, this time round, there was ins and outs, but they protected me to an extent and they let me come back into the boat. But like, you should never take that for granted because all the meanwhile, when yes, you're still training and I'm still on the bike or I was swimming this year, etc., like all of that stuff, everyone else is training hard and they could be a completely different athlete from when you tested to when you come back. And so if the coaches have seen someone put in a monumental shift and they're all of a sudden like absolutely killing every single piece, then why shouldn't they give that person an opportunity to prove themselves and test? So I never like to sort of sit there and be like, so-and-so said it's fine, so it's fine.
Yeah.
Because you can't predict what other people do with their training and you can't predict what's going to happen to you.
Absolutely. And even if, say, you won your selection all the way in April, like you don't just want to feel like you're coasting or getting a free ride these next few months, like having like missed talent selections. So no, that's absolutely the right attitude to have.
World Championships that year was end of September. So to be like winning in April doesn't really mean anything in comparison to when you're supposed to be trying to win in September.
It's almost a different season.
Yeah. It's a really long time away.
So how did the event go?
So that year, like in and out of the quad, we had quite a lot of injury and illness because COVID was in and out. I actually got COVID after Henley because we weren't racing Henley that year. We had an injury. So then I had a great time at Henley, which my coaches said, please be careful about. And then I ended up catching COVID. And so then wasn't able to race World Cup 3. So that was annoying. So didn't really get to test properly then. Went to Europeans. Europeans went really well. And I think we were not surprised by that, but like definitely weren't expecting a gold there because we just hadn't really had the chance to really like test our boat. And then we got to Worlds and we had tried as a crew to focus on the Chinese. We said into the final, we want to beat the Chinese. So we need to be with them. We need to be aware of where they are. We need to sort of like hunt them. And then I think that whilst it made sense at the time, and like that was the right strategy to sort of take, it did sort of cost us, I think, fighting for the silver, because we were so focused on the Chinese, we didn't really see the Dutch come through. And by the time that we had seen them, we didn't have enough time to respond, and we ended up coming third. That was a result that we were all still proud of, but it's one of those races where you look back and you kind of think, oh, had we done it this way, would we have come away with a different colour medal? I don't think gold was really in question that year, just because the Chinese were like had a really good year, and they'd worked hard, trained hard, and they earned the result that they got. But I feel like as a race, we kind of lost out on that silver because we were so fixated on one boat. And that's why coming into this season, we had a lot of chats about like, I don't really care about where any other country is. I don't care if it's, you know, the world Olympic champions. Like, we really can't afford to just sort of like pin all of your hopes on one boat, because you can lose so much more by just looking in one direction and ignoring everyone else.
Yeah. So. And you don't want to make that mistake when it actually matters at the Olympics. So it's good that you can... Yeah, but it's good that you can like hash out those kind of like tactical things in like the run-up, I guess, before.
Yeah,
like dangers can come from anywhere these days, you know.
Yeah.
Cruise speeds are changing so much.
Swiss rate like 40 something for the whole race. I don't know how they do it, but they're just absolutely like demonic on the rate, and we're just kind of sat there like 34 is high enough.
Did the Swiss use those the weird...
We use the macros, like
the comps.
What are they called? The comps.
I hate them, but
go on.
No, like they're just the blades that we chose to use last year because the coaches chat around and they're supposed to help with like connection, something like that. And
rate as well, no?
Yeah.
I thought so.
I think they're supposed to make you like be able to like rate higher.
Interesting.
No comment.
Could be wrong. A lot of bro science going on here.
Yeah. I just don't like them because I just like normal blades. I just feel like they look silly for one.
Weird.
So you don't need to care about what they look like, but I just feel like they look weird. And I don't have any problems. I don't think any of us have any problems like connecting with normal blades, anyways. But we have won the world championships with them, so we can't complain about them really.
Yeah.
I don't think they slow any boats down. I just don't know how necessary I think they are. But at the end of the day, I really am not like, I would never be the type of athlete that like breaks down all of the data and was like, see, that actually does give us a speed gain. So I could be ignoring some like pretty hard facts about Andrews being like, you actually do go faster with these blades. So I'm sure there's a reason why we use them. I prefer using the normal blades in my single. Like, I won't use those ones in my single.
Yeah, it's just what you used to running your entire life. So
sometimes,
why change? Okay, so like literally now having done almost like an entire Olympiad cycle in a GB team, like in and out, like obviously under 23s, COVID, two senior worlds. How are you preparing for this next season that's just about to start? Or by the time this episode gets released, it will be well underway.
Yeah.
What are your sights set on, and how do you feel coming into it? Any challenges, any things you want to personally work on or capitalize on, or maybe like build on from last year?
So we've got like a limited amount of trials this year to hit because the season is so much shorter than they ordinarily are for us. We've got to like compress everything, and instead of sort of dedicating time for you to go out in singles or pairs to then test your speed to then eventually go into a crew boat, they decided to just, like, I think they do this every Olympic year, to be honest, they just bypass that bit. And so you've got 2 trials to hit. We've got November, and then there's going to be December, and there's some debate around like what boats December will be in, because they might be in like small crew boats or big crew boats, or they might be in singles and pairs. I don't know. They haven't decided that yet, but definitely November in a single. So that's the first thing to sort of focus on for the season. And yeah, I won't focus on like the end of the year in whichever format that comes, whether or not I get selected to go to the Olympics. Like, I'm not going to focus on that until like, if I'm selected and I'm going.
Yeah, naturally,
that's come. Or if I'm not selected and then there's a plan for what we're going to do next, then that's what I'll deal with when that comes to it. So yeah, like same old for me pretty much. Like each year, focus on whatever I can do to make myself like stronger, which for me this year won't just be in terms of like my erg scores and stuff, but will also be like my robustness so I don't get injured. Because I think injury for me this year, if I can avoid that in any way possible, that would just be a win for me in itself. To feel like I'm not sort of like in and out of a crew boat, if that was the goal, that would be a win.
Yeah.
And if you look at your results with injury, take the injury and the time out the boat out, and it's only going to increase.
Yeah.
Not hopefully, definitely.
Yeah. The reason why I'm
I
asking,
can get bored and just be like, oh, this is too much time now. Yeah.
This is too easy. No stress.
No.
I kind of feel like
go
going
back to the pool. Yeah. Please don't take me back to the pool. Oh my god.
I want to go on the bike now.
It's the watt bike. Yeah.
You're lucky on a watt bike. The first time my bike went, watt bike didn't exist. Or late concept or any bike. We just had like a spin bike, no screen.
Oh my god.
Just like 90 minutes, no data. It was horrific.
Yeah, that is boring. Yeah, no, at least you can look at your watts and you can kind of be like, oh, I'm doing strong or I'm doing well today, or like, yeah, no, today's not a good day.
Doing something. But I always used to think actually like training on the bike, you did get fitter because you would do all the same sessions but never rate capped.
Yeah.
So like a half hour on the bike was all
just
out.
Flat out.
Like, yeah, it was just like
end yourself.
Yeah,
end yourself, die. Yeah.
Horrible.
Yeah.
Really hard.
Fit, gets you fit.
Yeah, I guess the general reason why I'm like asking that question is like if there are maybe like some other like girls or athletes in your position, and like to kind of like as a word of inspiration, like I want to do what Lola's doing. So that's why I was just kind of like, okay, like how do you approach the next season after this? But it makes perfect sense. Stay injury free, capitalize, get a little bit stronger, a little bit better, and just focus on the day to day.
Well, like my main opposition are people that are like in the team, you know, like, and they're my teammates and they're my friends and they're my crewmates from this year. But like in order to get selected to go, like you have to earn and you have to like win your seat. So for the first half of the year at least, like my main opposition are my friends, which is a really weird feeling to have. It's not a unique one. Like everyone in high performance sport, no matter where you are, like you have that same sort of problem to deal with. But I think we're very good as a squad, like never letting that like get in the way of like our friendships. And I don't know what this year will be like, because as you say, like this year is a slightly different year. It's not a World Championships, it's an Olympics, and there are seats that we've qualified and there are seats that we're looking to qualify. But like it's going to be a stressful year. But I'm hoping the same way at Newcastle, where like we would come together in times of stress to sort of put our own sort of like egos aside and our own sort of aspirations aside to think about what's like good for us as a team and a squad. Like I hope we have the same atmosphere this year, because that's the way that you get successful teams. Like nobody is like a winning team. Like you can get a winning boat, but like if you want a team to do well, you need the squad to be happy, and the only way is they're happy is if you feel like you're supported and not, I don't know, like beating each other down.
Absolutely. I think you've absolutely nailed that. And looking from the outside in, GB is looking really strong. That year looks to be like very promising. So like obviously it's down to the hard work that you guys and the team and like everyone else around the edges like will put in. But from the spectators' point of view, it's like very exciting to see what's going to come out in Paris.
No pressure.
Well, I might be spectating, so don't worry about that.
Yeah, no, I wasn't.
I'll see you there. I'll just be in the crowds, just like, woo.
Don't think about that yet.
I get some croissants. Delicious.
Just stick to the process. Like you said, you've worked out what works for you, and just keep doing that. Like from experience, speaking to other people, Olympic year is obviously always a bit of a step up, but I think that's just the same way. Just the pressure comes, a bit more pressure, a bit more intensity, like helps performance. Like you said, if you stick together, work as a team, like trust in your previous performances.
Yeah.
Don't worry too much about the double.
I'm hoping that it's just kind of like, we've been forewarned that this year is going to be really intense and we're not really going to have any time to do anything but row, blah, 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 blah. So that was part and parcel of my reason why, instead of deciding to go away like abroad for holiday, I wanted to just see my friends and sort of have that social recharge, like see family, see friends. That like it's quite hard to fit that in your normal like rowing life, because even when you have time, sometimes you're mentally and physically like shattered, and all you want to do is just sort of recharge on your own. Like you don't feel like you've actually had a break by going out and socializing, because sometimes even that is like a little bit too much. So I wanted to do that whilst I had the energy. But yeah, like Olympic year is going to be a step up, but hopefully no more so than in the sense of going from juniors to Newcastle, and like Newcastle to Molesey and Molesey to Leander, and then into the team. Like all of these steps that you make as rowers and athletes, like they do teach you about how you sort of adapt to all these changes. So I'm hoping, famous last words, that it's going to be okay.
Yeah. You're approaching it all with the right attitude. You know, you've got a good sense of like where you are at and what you want to get out of it.
Me like 3 weeks time when I'm in the middle of one of Andrew's hell weeks and then ask me how I'm doing then. But right now I'm fresh, so I'm like optimistic, and it's a sunshine and rainbow rowing day. But in 3 weeks' time, maybe I'm going to be sat there like everything hurts and I don't want to talk about it.
That's absolutely fair enough. Cool. I guess let's ask you some quick fire round questions.
Oh my gosh.
They're not that hard.
The quick questions, they don't have to be quick
It's
answers.
not like a quiz, is it? It's not like...
Who won the bronze medal in 2003 World?
If I was Lauren Henry, I'd be able to tell you that she knows everything about all rowing dates and like all of it.
I think we should put
Get her on and
You
geek
should,
out,
like,
geek
you
out.
ask her like times, percentages, dates, people who were in the boat. Like, she can name it all, like all of it.
Okay, so here's a message out to our listeners. If you know someone else who's equally as knowledgeable as Lola claims Lauren Henry is, let's put them together and let's organize a little panel show, kind of like game, and see who's the bigger rowing
Honestly,
nerd.
I'm just saying this now. You will not find anyone that knows more than Lauren Henry. I'm challenging you on that. You will not find anyone who knows more.
Sounds
Challenge accepted. Chat, do your thing. Okay, quick fires. What's your favorite boat type?
Oh gosh. Single. Yeah, single.
Okay. Any particular reason?
So I really love racing in quads because you've got that support, but just in the day-to-day general rowing, I just find being on my own in a single like quite therapeutic because I don't have any stress about am I rowing well enough for my teammates or expectations that I like have to live up to them. Like, I can row badly, I can row well. It doesn't really matter for me. It's just about like being out and alone. Like, it's a really nice sort of zen, like therapeutic mindset for me. So that's why.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
What are some of your favorite rowing venues that you've either trained at, raced at, or visited?
Varese cool, to be fair. I do really like Varese, and a Viz is nice as well. It's like something about these, and like Varese isn't quite as big as a Viz in terms of like the lake size and where you can go. But yeah, I like rowing because it makes you feel like quite distanced and quite like separated from like the rest of the world. So when you're in like quite remote areas and just like alone or in small boats paddling along, like it can be quite like a cool moment to stop and be like, who would have thought rowing would take me here?
Oh, I love it.
This is gorgeous, yeah.
Yeah.
Never been yet, but at some point I'm gonna have to go and visit.
Yeah.
Next question. What are some of the races that you'd like to do again when you're 60 or 70? Like a regatta that you'd like to repeat, or maybe like a race you'd like to relive?
Am I going to be rowing when I'm 60 or 70? Probably.
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 No one gets out.
It's that
Is
relationship that's still going strong.
Yeah,
What sort of marriage anniversary is that? God. You know, I feel like some of the races along the Thames were always quite fun. I feel like there's some short ones, short like regatta runs that you can do that are literally like 500, 600 meters. Actually, also probably like Rutherford Head, Newcastle. That would be really funny to go back and do with like an alumni 8 and just sort of smash up and down the time.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Cool. The question I ask is, if you could travel back in time to the age you were when you first fell in love with rowing.
Yeah. 13-year-old Lola.
13-year-old Lola. What advice would you give her?
Don't take it too seriously. Like, I think that whilst I don't actually I don't really want to change that learning process that I had to go through, because I feel like it gives you confidence to know that you have learned something and you have adapted. Yeah, like it probably would have been nice had I not had to sort of cry and on my way to training one day because I was so stressed out from my own sort of pressure and expectations when, as I said, everyone around me at that club at Newcastle were just trying to get me to see myself for how they saw me, which was just like a happy, normal girl. Didn't need to sort of put the weight of the world on my shoulders. So yeah, just chill out.
Great one. Yeah, great advice.
Absolutely. Last question. That will be, who are some of your rowing idols or heroes or people you've looked up to during your career?
Okay, so my big sister was one to start off with, just because I say like that was that sort of competitivity, like from day one to be like, yeah, okay, I want to do that. I then, like when I was starting to row, and Bill came in to sort of push me and like sort of challenge me a bit more. Looking at Emma Twigg, she was really cool because you know, he was like showing me videos of people rowing in singles and saying like, you see how she does that really well and you see how she does that really well. So he would always show me pictures of like Kim Crow and videos of like Emma Twigg. And I just, because my dad was half Kiwi, I was like, oh, yeah, well, my dad was Kiwi, but born and raised in Zimbabwe. I was like, oh, the Kiwi one, I think she's really cool. And so I like always followed her rowing. And so to see her like win, that was cool. And then maybe I also shout out Jess Leyden. I was obsessed. We were all obsessed with Jess growing up because every time you go to those like Nottingham GB rowing team like weekends, they would always show like technical video of like, this is what good sculling looks like, and it was always Jess. It was always Jess, and I was there like, wow, like she's perfect. And then fast forward, I was being offered to run a double with her, and I was like, no, this is too intense. I would mess it up. So
I think we can probably understand then why.
I was like, oh my god, no,
It's so funny that you mentioned like those three people in particular, like Kim Crow, Emma Twigg, and Jess Leyden, because like in terms of like, if I was to like point out female scullers or single scullers in particular, like when I was rowing, those are the three that I've also like looked up to, as well as Vicky Thornley, obviously at that time. But like Twiggy would definitely love to have her on the podcast, and Kim, I think
everyone knows Vicky in that sense as well. Because I mean, like, she's epic.
She's a star, And then
I was
obviously
trying to go with less mainstream options because I was like trying to be different, but
awesome.
like Vicky, no, as a young girl, because I was like, oh, everyone knows Vicky, so I want to show people that I know rowing by saying some names that people won't know, but I still ended up picking up like the most mainstream people ever, because it's like Olympic champion, world champion.
Not at the time though.
No, but she was on her way and everyone knew that. Everyone
just pick them early. Good early pick.
That's true. Who's your rowing idol? Kiwi pair.
Exactly.
Is that
so easy?
Exactly. I feel like we've promised you like a chat, but it did actually turn out to be like a little bit interview. Like we got to ask you some like really cool questions now, but no, I've absolutely like enjoyed picking your brain and getting like some answers, like an actual insight into what it's like to, you know, progress through your career. And also like it's nice to like catch up. Obviously, like it's been quite a few years since I've seen you at uni. But no, it's absolutely awesome to like see you doing well and like winning, coming away from like world stages with like gold medals, and like just very excited to like see what next year is going to bring. And like obviously wish you all the best. Like fingers crossed for the selection. Touch wood, but like would love to see you in Paris and just wish you best of luck. Thank you so much for the chat.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for coming on.
It's fun to catch up with everyone as well. Just hope I didn't like ramble or like overshare my overthinking.
Not at all. I thought incredibly well spoken.
Yeah, no, I think it's so important. Like, and it's so important for people to hear. Like you said, like we all have suffered at times on our own, and like, it's so easy to see the finished result. And, you know, oh, she won worlds. That's amazing. You know, like she's amazing, and it's like, but look at all this stuff that goes into it, and someone
whole crew obviously as well in that sense. Like, it's never like, it's never to be taken for granted, but like to have like a crew that was so like, we all managed to like find something about each other that we could respect, get along with, enjoy each other's company, like that makes it all the more enjoyable as well.
There's so much more that goes into it, and that's what fascinates me about it. And I think the journey is so much more important. And I think if we can, by doing this, if we can help other people like deal with some of those tougher bits, by realizing they're not alone, then like that's awesome. So like, and I think you sharing your story is really, really cool. It's been awesome to hear, and best of luck for the next year.
Thank you.
And hopefully at some point we can get you back on a podcast and chat some more crap about rowing.
Let's see what's happened. Maybe I'll be in the pool instead of rowing, but let's see what's happened. I'm only saying that because I'm superstitious. I'm not planning to go in the pool.
That's okay. You can go in the pool like after sessions. So like not as part of
mind.
Awesome. I think that concludes everything for today's episode. So on that note, easy there.
Cue the music.